Hey, we're kicking off a suite of Crocoblock videos. We're going to be looking at JetEngine, JetSmartFilters, JetAppointments, and JetBooking. We're going to try and build out like a personal trainer fitness class website. We're not covering off every single page or header footer templates, okay? I've got lots of other videos for that. But we're going to focus on what do you need to do with those 4 plugins to make it work. Now, you're either watching the video that has all of the modules inside, or you might be watching each individual video because I'm going to break this up into stages. It's up to you what you want to watch. If you're not going to use Jet Appointments or Jet Bookings, then you don't need to watch that bit. But I definitely recommend the JetEngine and the JetSmartFilters is a must for you, especially if you want to get a little bit more out of your loop grid and the way you do your filtering. And remember, the JetSmartFilters you can use for posts, your custom post, and for your products as well. Now, these plugins aren't completely free. You do have to pay for them. And if you go over to the Crocoblock link that I've got in the video description, by the way, this is a non-affiliated link, all right? In fact, I recommend you just go and do a search for Crocoblock and go over there. There is no commission, and this is not a sponsored video at all. But if you do go over to Crocoblock and you go down, you can either go and get all the plugins in one go for $199 a year, or you may decide to add them individually, like what I've done over here, and it would cost you $124 a year. Like I said, pick and mix what you want to go for. Go either get them all or get them individually. Let's kick off with JetEngine. So we've got a website, Elementor, Elementor Pro, and JetEngine installed. We'll add in the other plugins that are part of this series as we come to use them. Now, once you've installed JetEngine, you want to go over and click JetEngine on the JetEngine menu there, and you now get to decide on what extra modules or widgets do you want to add. I'm only interested in the grid gallery and the forms legacy. Now, this forms legacy is actually important for Jet Appointments and Jet Booking, so I could technically leave this off. All it does is open up an item over here called Forms, which is more for submissions. So to be honest, for a lot of you, you may just want to go with Grid Gallery. However, if you are going to start setting up events, you may want to go for the calendar. And if you're unsure of what any of these modules are, just click them. There is a helpful video there and a bit of an explanation. So if you were going to have events, you know, when you have the calendar, month, April, May, June, July, and all of that across the top, you could go and show that off. But I'm not doing that. I'm also not going to show any maps. So if you were going to have like a listing directory and you had a list of all of your personal trainers or web designers, you might have a map that pinpoints where they are around the world. Again, I'm not focusing on that, but you can go in and experiment with these to what you want to go for. I am going to be using Elementor Pro for the loop grid. So I'm going to try and blend in the fact that a lot of you probably have got Elementor as well. So we're going to try and get the best out of Crocoblock's Jet plugins and what can we do with Elementor as well, because they kind of go hand in hand in a nice way. On the Performance tab, I've disabled everything except Elementor View because I'm not going to be using a lot of the features inside the block view, and I'm not using bricks. And if you do go and do the optimized DOM, you do get a bit of a warning message there. So I am just going to leave it with Elementor View there. I'm going to go to the skins manager. I'm not importing anything there. Shortcode generator, I'm not fussed about that. Macros generator, I'm going to leave that intact. Now, the glossaries is actually quite important. This is something that is very similar to what you would be doing with taxonomy, where you create categories almost. But I like the way the glossaries work, and we will explore this later on in a later video or part of this big series when we need to address it. And if we go down to the form settings, if you decide you want to integrate with MailChimp or ActiveCampaign, you can do that. Or you want to go and put in your keys for reCAPTCHA, you can do as well. So from the get-go, the settings for this are quite simple. I've just flown through it. You know, I haven't sat there pondering, well, am I going to go for this or not? It's not that difficult for you to get through. Right, now let's get the most out of what is the point of using JetEngine. When it comes to custom post types and custom fields, a lot of us tend to go with advanced custom fields. The trouble is, though, you got to kind of go to ACF Pro if you want to start using repeater fields and some other elements of that as well. If you want to get all of that in one bundled package, then JetEngine is a definite solution for you. So let's go and create our first custom post type. We're going to go down to post type, and it's really, really simple this. We're going to go and click Add New. I'm going to call it Sessions. that will automatically create the slug. I mean, it's always going to be in lowercase, so don't modify that. Then I'm going to go and click labels. Now, I recommend you don't actually change these unless you really feel the need to do it. Because a lot of these items like add new item, you could change this to say add new session, edit session, etc. But I personally don't really see the point in doing a lot of that. You're just creating a lot of extra work for you unless you really feel the need or your client says they really want you to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to skip basically all of that. Let's now go to the advanced settings. You can actually leave all of this as it is. Have a read of what it is telling you. You have left default activated, but I would leave that except two things. One of them is the menu icon. Now, when your custom post is created, it's going to sit probably somewhere about here above the JetEngine down there, and it will have this pin as its symbol. You may decide you don't want to go for that, so you might go for image, and then you might pick this image symbol. Now, I have to say the menu icons and the descriptions aren't exactly intuitive. Like, this looks like a key. It's actually network. What has that got to do with a network? I don't know. I personally like to just leave them as a post with a pin so I can very quickly see them. I don't often like to have too many different icons, especially if that icon is already being used for something else. But it depends on you and your client. What is important, though, is what we get down here. Title and editor. If you were in a normal WordPress post, by the way, there's your title, there's your editor. On the left or the right-hand side, sorry, you will have things like categories, featured images, discussion, and stuff like that. At the moment, we only have title and editor for our custom post type. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to go and pick featured image. I could also pick comments. I could also pick author. I could also pick excerpt. Now, it very much depends on what do you want to have visible for you or the user or the editors or the authors to go in and start completing in. I think you should leave title and thumbnail so that when you go to the post, you'll have the title block. You will not have the editor, but you will have the item over here to do the featured image. You're probably thinking, by removing the editor, how can we actually add any content, any blurb, any funky words? Don't worry, we will later on add in a custom field for the description. So we're being very specific over where people start to enter in their details. Now let's go down to meta fields. This is where we would actually go and add our fields. We're going to cover that in a later video because I want to cover something called the glossaries first before we do that. The admin column will also cover off once we've built out our meta field, so we've got something we need to show. That in a nutshell is the custom post type created. So we've called it sessions. Now I'm going to hit add post type. And down here we now have our custom post type sessions. I said it would be higher up. It's actually down there. You go and click that and there are no posts at the moment because we've just gone and created it. You click add new and there's very little you can do here except go and give a title and go and set the featured image. And we will do that later on once we've added in our custom fields. But in the next video, we're going to cover off glossaries. Inside of JetEngine, we could create taxonomies for our custom post type, which is sessions. So basically, we could create a taxonomy for class type, so it might be aerobics, weight training, cardio, and things like that. We could also go and create a category for the name of the trainer. So we could have a list of them. There's many things we could do, and taxonomies is the norm. But I have found for all right and wrong reasons that I like to use the glossaries, especially with the way it feeds through into the custom fields that we will be adding to our custom post type. Let me explain a little bit more. So down here we have taxonomies. I could, if I want, go and click add new. I could go and give this a name, class type, and it will give you a slug. And then I could say that this is going to be applicable to sessions. So what you want to do is make sure you scroll down and find your custom post type. So this is where you don't want to call your custom post type revisions because you already got the word revisions there. So you could go and do that. And then we could start adding in some further details. I actually am not going to create the taxonomy. So I'm just going to jump back out of that. So as you can see, if we go to sessions, we do not have a taxonomy there. Instead, I'm going to go to glossaries and I'm going to build it out here. So let's create our first one. I'm going to call this class type and the data source is going to be set items manually. You could go for an uploaded file. So let's say you got like 1,000 different class sessions in your gym or maybe you're uploading like all the countries and cities in the world, you could just upload from a CSV, which I think is a really, really good feature of JetEngine. So, but we're just going to do it manually. So I'm going to go and click new field, and I'm going to type over here aerobics like that. We'll stick that in and I'll put that as the field label. I'm not going to set this to be selected. So when you do start to pick one of these items, you don't have, it won't be pre-selected for you basically. It's not going to say aerobics and then you now have to like either uncheck it or go and pick something else. I'm going to say that you have complete freedom over what you pick. So we've got aerobics. We're going to drop in a few more fields. So there we go. I've got aerobics, cardio, spin cycling, and weight training. And I'm just going to hit save over there. That is our glossary. And believe me, it makes things so much easier when you start to now basically use some of the other features in here when we come to do the custom fields. Believe me, it's so simple and easy to do. We're now going to create a new glossary, and this one is going to be called trainer, like that. And again, this is going to be done manually. Now, I could, if I want, create a custom post type for trainer. Okay, so we got the session and we'll add our stuff. I could do one with trainer. And then into there, I could have loads of custom fields like name, age, experience, education, qualification, stuff like that. I could do that. The reason why I'm not doing that is basically because I'm going to have a session and there will be a one-to-one relationship. You'll have a session and that is then one trainer. There is a trainer and they only cover that particular session, or they cover those kind of sessions. If, however, you were going to have like a one-to-many, and you can do relations as well with JetEngines, which I'm not covering off just yet. What the one-to-many almost is that let's say you've got a dentist surgery, and inside of that dentist surgery, there are 5 dentists, and the service you're going for is root canal treatment. Why would you go and select it? But let's say you could go for it. So you select root canal surgery, and then you're told, well, there are 5 dentists. Who do you want to pick? And then you go and pick the dentist, and then you would obviously do your appointment or your booking via them. But in this scenario, you got a session, and then that session is only ever done by Mr. X or Mrs. X or someone like that. Therefore, I don't need to start worrying about having multitude or a one-to-many. I'm not explaining that very well, but I will cover that off later on when we do eventually get to setting up appointments and bookings, how we could have done it in 2 different ways. But for simplicity, I'm just going to go with a trainer glossary. So I've gone and added that, and I'm now going to go and add in my 6 people. I've gone and added in my 6 trainers. It's really quick and easy to do this. Right, let's just hit save on that. Let's minimize our trainer, and then I'm going to add in a 3rd glossary. And this is going to be called level. Again, this is going to be done manually, and this is going to be pretty simple. Again, I think you can guess where I'm going with this. We're going to have beginner, intermediate, and advanced. We're going to hit save, and you know what? We're going to do one more final glossary. We're going to call it session type. You could argue that maybe session type and class type could have been reversed in the way they are, but I don't mind that. Group, online, and venue. And again, we're going to save that. So you can kind of see that I'm trying to think of lots of bases here, because I want to give you a lot of options. And yeah, it might feel like overkill, but if you get them all in, it's going to make it so much easier and presentable when you start to pull this through onto a single post template, and it will make sense when we get to that. If you're keeping up, you know that we've created a custom post type for sessions, and we've created 4 glossaries. Now, when we were creating a custom post type, we did have an area for meta fields, and I said, let's not do that just yet. Let's get the glossaries done first. If we had done the meta fields at that point, and I then went, I've got 4 fields, I want them to be using a glossary maybe, or a taxonomy, you'd be jumping out, creating them, and jumping back in. And you might do that repeatedly. It's a really good idea to map out your fields, what is or is not going to be a glossary, create them, the glossaries, and then do the meta fields. And also have a think about, are any of those fields going to be used within a filter? And if so, are they going to be used as a select field, a radio field, a number range field, or a checkbox? And there are various items there, and I'll show you some of them. Because if you create a field, and then you realize later on, oh, it meant to be a glossary, you got to go create your glossary. Oh, it's going to be a checkbox, you got to change the field type. And I know it does not take that long to do, but spend a bit of time mapping out on a bit of paper, because It doesn't take long to do. So let's go back over to JetEngine and go back over to our post type. And there we have our sessions. We can click it and we are back in. And what we're now going to do is scroll down until we get to meta fields. We're going to click new meta field and we are now going to start to add in our very first field. I'm going to call this a description and the slug will then appear. Now, in terms of the object type, this is currently set to be a field. You do have tab, accordion, and endpoint. Now, tab accordion means that you can start to group items up. So let's just pretend this description was going to be a tab. So you might have 4 tabs. And inside of that tab, we may have, say, 3 or 4 or 5 fields, but they're grouped within the tab or the accordion. It's all about how you want to present things. So let's say we were going to have like sessions, obviously, and then we were going to have a description tab with a description. Then we have another tab, which is called venue, and you have fields in there about the venue. Then you have another tab for trainer, and inside of there, we have fields in there for like the name of the trainer, the age of the trainer, you know, where they're based, how long they've been working. You could do that. But if you want to keep things just laid out like a normal, like how it would normally look on a post, basically, like we have all your fields listed down, and you will see that when we finish building it, you could just go for a field. However, if you want to have them grouped up, you could do. So if I made this be a tab, and I now go over here and say new field, new meta field, sorry, this is now where I might now go and type in, well, I've called it description, which wasn't a very good one. And I might have another description or details tab in there. I didn't think that one out, did I? But if you want to do that, you could do. For the purpose of what we're doing, we're just going to leave it as a field. The field type will be a text. Now, if it's a description, you have the option of going for a text area or a WYSIWYG. The text area may look like you can do a lot in it. So you can drop in loads of items and loads of paragraphs, but when it presents it, it will all be blocked into one paragraph. So let's say you go and write in some text, you know, this text, and then you put return, this text, hit return, this text, it'll all be grouped into one. If you want to allow the text to maintain when there's been a carriage return, you want to go for a WYSIWYG. You also get some other options as well, like bold italic, which I know you can do in the text area as well with a bit of code, but it doesn't always work very well. And it's not great for end users if they're not sure of how to do that. The one danger with the WYSIWYG, though, is that it does give you the option to add media, to make things bold. And unless you have some sort of control, again, you know, your team or whoever's adding in these entries for consistency, just make sure they don't go start adding in lots of colors because they can do, you know, so have some control over that. The description. So what will the end user see when they start to fill this in? So I'm going to drop in. So briefly describe the session and why it would be useful to join. I'm now going to just scroll down and decide on how wide do I want this to be. Let me show you what this looks like on 100%. I'm also going to say that this is required and I'm not going to set up any conditional logic. So I'm just going to go and hit update post type. Let's go to sessions for a moment and click add new. And what you'll see is add title. You can see featured image over here. And we now have our field for description. This is currently set to be 100%. So it basically takes up the fullest state of whatever our state inside WordPress dashboard. What if I don't want it to be that big? So let's go back into our custom post type. Let's go to description. And let me now set this to be 66.6%. Let's update that. Go back over to our post. And you can now see it's made it smaller, but all you get is a gap over here. So if you were going to start adding extra fields, you could get away with it, but there is a danger with the way things don't wrap perfectly well within here. So if you have a small field, you could do 50%, 66, 33%, stuff like that. But when it comes to the description one, I would probably leave that set as 100%. You're going to get to see that more as we add in more fields. So that is our description field. Let's now hit new meta field. I'll call this one occurrence. So how often do the lessons occur? In case anyone's wondering what occurrence is. This is just going to be a field again. This will be a text field. You know, there's no need for them to write loads of text. It might be something like every Tuesday, every week, you know, every third Tuesday or something like that. Here we'll just put in, I'm going to make this be a 50% width field. You can decide on how long you want this to be. So I might say that this cannot be longer than 25 characters. You can now see the occurrence over here. Type in every day, it accepts it, but there will come a point where, look, it stops. Because I've said limit it to be 25 days. So you can see it working in motion. Let's just clear that out. Our third field is going to make use of the glossary because you know what? We went and created them, so let's make some use of them, right? Okay, we've got type here and we're going to get a slug and it's a field. And when we scroll down to field type, we have a range. By the way, the Crocoblock knowledge base does explain a lot of these with videos and descriptions, and I'll pop a link to that in the video description. Now, planning out your fields is super, super crucial. I've already decided that my class type, which is going to be part of this type, is going to be a checkbox, and it will be used with JetSmartFilters later on. The checkbox means that when you are searching or you are completing this, you may have a session that is weight training and spin cycling. You know, maybe you're doing both at the same time. I want to allow you to pick one or the other, or as many as you want. Whereas if you only allow individual selection or searching, then the select or the radio would probably work out better. But for this scenario, we're going to go with checkbox. We now have a few more things we need to sort out. Are you going to allow the person completing this to add new entries? So at the minute, we have a glossary with 4 sessions: aerobics, cardio, spin cycling, and weight training. Are you going to allow the author or the editor to go, oh, we're going to go and add one in for yoga as well? And they go and type in yoga. Do you want them to do that? Or do you want to keep it very controlled with your glossary? So if you're not going to allow custom, leave that. Are you going to now add in your options? If I go down here and I go and say, okay, we're going to have yoga, this is not pulling from the glossary. You can almost argue, well, what was the point of the glossary then? So we're going to get rid of that. Okay, so this is where you may now add in all of your entries. So if you haven't got a glossary, it's not the end of the world. You can add your items in here. However, if you want to have like real hardcore control over what those items are, the glossary is your friend, because I'm now going to pick this. And I'm now going to say, I want to pick my class type glossary. Can you see how amazing and cool that is? In terms of layout, are we going to have vertical or horizontal? I'm actually going to go with horizontal. I've got to have a think about this now, because I did set one of my fields up, didn't I, to be 50%, but I think we'll get away with it. Are we going to save this as an array? Now, I'm going to have them presented almost like a line, okay? Or even as a list as well. And I'm going to have more control over how I do that if I save them as an array. What that means is, even if you pick 4 class types, because you've got 4 available to you, they'll all be in a line and they'll be separated by a delimiter somewhere in the database. If, however, you're going to have just say like a select or a radio, you could get away with not doing save as an array. But because I've got multiple choices here and I'm going to allow you to do that, save as array is your friend, and I would recommend you enable that. We're going to set the width of this to be 50%, and I'm going to say that this is required. Let's just do update post, go back to our post and do a refresh. And what you'll now see down here is occurrence, type, name. We need to add in a description, don't we? And you can now see that you could, if you want, pick multiple items. I've just said select the relevant class types in the description, saved it, go back over, and you'll see that is now visible. You will notice also it has here like name underscore description, name occurrence, name type. These do become important when you start to do your filtering, but don't worry, you can always jump back in and see them. And if you ever get a little bit confused, when you shrink down the meta fields, you can see it over there as well. Right, that's 3 fields so far. We've got a load more to do. I'm going to go for trainer. This is going to be a select box. I'm going to get my options from the gallery and I'm going to pick trainer. Am I going to allow them to select multiple values? No, I'm going to allow you to only pick one. Select the trainer, and I'm going to make this be a 50% as well. Is this required? Absolutely. New field. I'm going to type in level. We get the slug. We have field, and I'm going to change this one to be a select as well. So this is where I want you to pick, are you beginner, intermediate, advanced? This is going to be from the glossary, and we're going to go for level. We're going to go with the description, select the level, and we're going to put this as a 50% as well. And this is required. Let's drop in another new field. I'm going to call this one session type. This will be a checkbox though, because I had one-to-one group online venue. You could be a one-to-one online or a one-to-one venue. So I'm going to allow you to pick any of those items over there. We are going to say that you can get the options from the glossary. Obviously, we then pick session type. We're going to save this as an array because this is now, you could have multiple items down there. The session types. Notice how I've put the plural in there. We're going to make this be a 50% as well. And we're going to say this is required. We have conditional logic. And I've not applied any of that anywhere because I'm now going to have a location field. Is there any point showing the location field if it's all online? So this is where I'm now going to make use of this, but for another field. So let's go with new field, and I'm going to call this location. This will be a text field, and the description will be enter for Privet Drive, little whinging Surrey. If you didn't know, that's where Harry Potter was. Okay, we're going to set that to be, we'll actually make that be about 66% because it's probably going to be a little bit longer. Character length, I would leave that open like that. Is it required? Yes, it is, especially if there is a venue. Now, this is where we're going to set the conditional logic. So I'm going to do setup conditional logic and enable. And here's where I'm now going to set my rule. So I'm going to say if this field here, session type, is equal, and here's the value. So when I start to type 1, it should return for me, there we go, 1-to-1. But we had 1-to-1 group, online, or venue. So if I go and type then, we get venue. That's it. Now, when you come out of it, you may think, oh my God, it's disappeared. No, it is there. When you hit the set conditional rule, you can see there session type is equal to venue. That will now appear. Great. Let's just hit update post type. Let's add in some further fields. I'm going to go and call this one cost. This will be a number field. Minimum value is 0. And what's the maximum value? Can your trainers charge $1 million? I don't know, right? Or you might want to say they can't go over £100. So you might go something like that. Enter the cost of the session. Let's go and add in a gallery as well, because don't you want to see images of basically what they offer in these classes? So this is going to be a field, but we're going to go and select gallery down here. I'm going to leave it as media ID for the value format, the description. So I've added in a bit of blurb there about where they can go to compress the images to WebP and what sizes I would like them to go for. I mean, sometimes you lose a bit of control over this. There's no harm in adding in a bit of description or prompt for them. And the final one we're going to add is email. So this is whereby the class trainer, they might want to be contacted. So we're going to say, hey, yeah, you can contact them. We're going to add in an email field. We got 10 fields. And I've got email down here. I've got occurrence over there. The order doesn't look great. And if we go over here and refresh this post type, can you see we got description and then we got this layout? What we're now going to do is start to make this look a whole lot better, okay? So I'm now going to pick up my appearance and I'm actually going to move, not the appearance, the description, and move that all the way down. I'm going to take my class type. I'm going to go in and I'm going to set that to be 25%. It doesn't need to be that big. And there we go. So we've got our type, we've got our occurrence. You can pick your trainer, you can pick cardio, spin cycling, pick whatever you want. You can go and pick your level and you got your session type. Now remember what we did here with conditional logic. By the way, we have got description and you do have your gallery and we are going to be filling these out, okay? Remember what we did? If I go and click 1-to-1, just 1-to-1, you can do a group as well. You can do an online, well, yeah, would it be? Yeah, it would be group online. I suppose if it was a mixture. But when I do venue, the venue item appeared, right? So if I go and do that, it's okay. I mean, you could have that as well. So it could be a mixture of online and venue. And then you go and pop in your details. And what we pop in here, as long as you put it in as full as possible, you can have your postcode, zip code, all of that. We could then use the Google Maps feature within Elementor to kind of show that within our single post template as well. I know this was a super long video, right? But I wanted to cover over lots of different fields that you could pull through into here, and how you can make it useful for yourself, and how even though we didn't have the editor feature there when we were setting up the custom post type, we've got tons of fields here to keep you happy, right? I'd love to know what you're thinking so far in the comments, okay, about has this been really useful for you? It's about time we added in some content to our custom post type sessions. In your WordPress dashboard, go over to sessions and click sessions. Now I've already gone and added in 5. I have 6 personal trainers, and I'm trying to create a class for every single one of them. I've already gone and done 5. I've done that so that you didn't have to sit there and watch me go through them all. But I'm now going to create one just to explain the process. And it should be pretty intuitive at this point. we go in to add new, and we're now going to go and give this a title. Now, I know that this class is associated with weight training, so I'm going to try and give it a funky name. Extreme weights. Yeah, pretty extreme, right? Anyway, we're going to go and tick the weight training class type, and you can see we have a checkbox. What about the occurrence? Every day, 8 a.m. The trainer for this is going to be Ryan Singh. So look, you just pick it from the drop down over there. Is this beginner, intermediate, or advanced? Well, I think we're going to go for advanced. No, we won't. We'll go with intermediate. No, we won't. We'll go for advanced. Well, I'm changing my mind because I've got a mixture of beginner and intermediate already. So I've got to have at least one advanced class. Now we'll go and stick in his email. Seriously, if you email that email, it's just going to bounce. So don't bother. What's the cost for this? Let's go and put in 45. And this can be a one-to-one. It can be, in fact, it is just a one-to-one. There is no group. And it is done at a venue. When you go and hit venue, you now go and add in your location. I've dropped in a description, and as you can see with the WYSIWYG, you can have bullets in there. You can even make some of the items be bold if you want, italics as well, or you could add in numbered items. Now, remember what I said, you do have to be a bit careful because someone could easily drop something in and go, oh, I'm going to make this be a header too. And you might get a mixture of layouts, so you want to kind of try and control that as much as possible. Then we scroll down and I now have two areas for images. I have gallery and trainer image. Now I've gone and added this extra field in because I realized I'd missed it out. This is just another meta field in the custom post type. And this is just trainer image. And rather than adding in gallery, it's just the image widget over there, or the setting, or the field type even. So we're going to go and pick our image, and I'm going to pick this person over here. And then for gallery, I'm going to go and pick this one, and that one over there. So if you're very careful about your layout in terms of your images, you can very easily go and pick the relevant set. And the last thing we need to do is go and set our featured image as well, because this is what will be visible when you have like the blog archive, or your, let's say you're doing a directory or listings. You don't have to always use the featured image though. You can use another image. You can drop an image in as to what we're going to build, and you could use your trainer image or something else as well. But I think it's a good idea to get into the habit of like actually putting in a featured image. So I'm going to go and pick this one in over here and then hit publish. So what we now have is, if we just go over to sessions, we have our 6 classes. They've got a trainer and they've got all of their content added in. But I think we can do a little bit more. And in our next video, we're going to cover off the admin columns, because at the moment, all we have is the title. The admin column setting for JetEngine allows you to have a bit more of a preview. So when you go over to your sessions, you're just going to have the title and the date it was created at the moment. And that could be a little bit confusing, because what if, say, you wanted to now identify the classes that had Ryan Singh or Jack Jones? Well, you might click through all of them until you find Jack. Well, wouldn't it be great if there was a column over here that had the trainer name maybe, or the venue, or some details, maybe even a preview of the featured image, because it makes it easier to kind of jump in and go, right, there's a problem with that one, or we need to update the details, and you know where to go. So we're going to go over to JetEngine, and we're going to go to post types, and we're going to go over to our sessions post type. So we've done, you know, the general settings, and we've done our meta fields, but if you scroll down, we have not touched the admin columns. So let's go and click that, and this is now where we're going to go and add in some extra fields. So we're going to click add new. I'm going to call this one trainer. Now the options for the type are meta value, post terms, post ID, or custom callback. We are going to use the custom callback because we are going to bring through an image, and we are also going to use a meta value as well. Now we're not using any taxonomy fields, so I'm not going to use the post term. So for our trainer, I'm actually going to pull back one of our meta fields. Now this, for our field name, this is where if you start typing anything, like even if I do tray, it's not going to give you a drop down. So what you need to do is now drop in the field name. So I'm going to scroll up until we get to trainer, and you basically want this field over here, the name ID. It's very easy to think that you're going to go and put the one with the uppercase start over there with trainer. No, it's actually the ID you want to pop in. So once you've got that, scroll back down. I mean, usually though, you should know what they are because we try to keep them very consistent, except we have description with underscore description there. So I'm going to go and pop in trainer like that. Now, this is where you have you can also decide on the order as well. At the moment, the title is going to be order number 1. It's the very first thing you see when you go to sessions. I am also going to add in an image. Now, the image will be before the title because it tends to look and work quite well that way when you are using WordPress. So we're going to add in an image that will be column number 1. Our title will be column number 2. I want the trainer to be column number 3 like that. I'm not going to add any prefix or suffix to that. And I am going to allow it to be sortable, mainly because what if like Jack Jones has 5 classes? I want you to be able to easily click on that and you can see all of Jack Jones's, rather than go, well, there's a Jack Jones there and there's a Jack Jones over here as well. Okay, it's not a numeric field. That is okay. Let's now go and click Add New. We're going to call this one Image. We're going to go to Custom Callback, because if you go to like Meta Value and you go and pop in the featured image, for instance, it won't bring back the image. You're basically just going to get the words. So what you need to do is go and pick Custom Callback. And then you need to click here, select from existing callbacks, and you want to go for the image. We're not going to pull back the gallery. We're just pulling back the featured image so we know what the class is. We don't need to have the image of the trainer. You could do that if you want. I mean, why not? Let's do that, right? Let's do that. We're going to go for thumbnail and size 100. We hit apply, pop the column order to be 1. Now, one thing I will say though about this is that it currently has the word thumbnail because that is going to automatically pull back the featured image, which is totally fine because we want to know what kind of class it is. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this field so that we have it over here now and it's kind of pulled back all the same details. I'm going to change this to now say trainer image, or even trainer image or trainer pick. I mean, let's just go for trainer pick, for instance. This again is a custom callback and it has JetEngine custom render thumbnail. That will bring back the same thumbnail that we've already got. So we're going to get it twice, which doesn't really make sense. What I'm going to do though is swap this out to be the actual trainer image ID. So what you do is you scroll back up to where we have trainer image. We then copy the name ID for that. So if you've got like say image 1, image 2, image 3, trainer image, class image, venue image, and you want to show something specific in the admin columns, this is what you would do. So we're going out to trainer pick, and where it says thumbnail, you got to make sure you get rid of that. And in between those 4 colons, so right in the middle of them, you go and put the ID for the image that you want. So there we go. We have trainer image. Now, there's my 3 admin columns. Just slightly rearrange the order and the admin columns. I mean, what you can do is put a number in, and if it's not in the right position, reduce the number, increase the number. If you go over to sessions now, you can see we have the image, we have the title, the trainer pick, the trainer, and the date. You could add more fields in. Just bear in mind, the more you add, the more cluttered up it's going to get. And remember, if you were looking at this on a mobile, which I don't always recommend for WordPress when working on mobile, but for say authors or editors, you want to keep it as clean and structured as possible. That was us adding admin columns to just boost up our custom post type. It's all good and well that we use JetEngine for our custom post types, our meta fields, and we've gone and created 6 classes, but we're not presenting or showing it off to the outside world anywhere. Let's sort that out and create our blog archive, and we're going to stick it on an example homepage. You could stick it on a blog archive page, you could stick it on a blog template page as well, and there are multiple ways to do this. I will, for the purpose of this tutorial, be using the Elementor loop grid because a lot of you are using that now, but I want to very briefly show you the JetEngine listings feature. So let's say you weren't using the loop grid now. You would go over to JetEngine listings and you would click Add New. What you would now do is almost create the template. So we've got 6 classes or 6 sessions. So how are they going to look? So we are going to say the listing source is a post. And we are going to say that this is going to come from the sessions post type. Okay. You do have other options up here as well. Maybe you're going to create it where it's based on like terms or a taxonomy as well. But we are specifically focusing on our sessions post type. So we've got that posts sessions. We're going to go and give this a name. Call it sessions listing so we know what it is. And where will this be visible? Well, we've only got Elementor on here at the moment, and we're happy to use that. So we're going to click create listing item. This is very similar to what you would be doing if you were kind of creating a loop grid. That being said, though, you could, if you want, go and drop a loop grid as well, which I would probably say is not a good idea. So what we're going to do is go over here and we are going to go and add in a container. And I'm going to do this really quickly because I really want to focus on the loop grid aspect. I'm going to drop in a title and I'm also going to drop in a image as well, just like that. I'm going to go over to my title. I'm going to get rid of it. I'm not going to stylize this, by the way. Just want to get you to understand how you could use the listings feature. We're going to click the dynamic tag, the little stack over there. We're going to scroll down until we get to post title. That will now bring over one of the items, extreme weight. Well, when I say item, I mean the session. Then we're going to click on the image. I'm not going to add one because if you add one here, it'll be the same image for every one of our sessions, which is not good and defeats the object of why we've even created this. What you do is go over and click the dynamic tag. You can see the stack over there. You click that and you then click featured image. And what will happen is the featured image will appear. Now, I'm very simplicity for simplicity, simplistic reasons. Just going to go and click update. That's it. I'm not adding in any other details. I'm keeping it really simple. And if we go over to JetEngine listings, you will now see sessions listing has been created. Let's now go over to our fake page. And this is something that I probably haven't shown you much of at the moment. This is just an example page that we've created in Elementor, okay? There's nothing fantastical going about it, except we have a hero banner. We have a container that's got a background image and some text in there with a call to action button. We then have another parent container with two child containers. This is just a background container image with some text. We have another child container with text, and we have an image. Now try to ensure that everything is kind of placed right at the borders of the left and right, just so it's a full page effect. And then down here, we have a third container. This container contains within here, and I'll show you here, I've called it blog. It contains 3 child containers. Why have I done 3 child containers? Because I'm going after a particular layout. Container number 1, which is over here, this contains basically nothing more than a call to action. The call to action widget that I've used from Elementor basically means I can have an image and I can have my words overlaying on top of the image. I could add in hover effects as well, which I've chosen not to do. You could also just add in a background image, and you could add in a headline widget and just, that would obviously sit over it. But I added in the call to action widget because then I could very easily go, oh, okay, we're going to go and drop in a button as well. And you can see it starts to add it in there without me having to mess around with too many widgets. So the CTA is one of my favorites. Anyway, what I'm going to do is in this child container, and by the way, this parent container is set as a row with wrap, okay? It's set as a row with wrap. It is also set to be 940 in width, the parent container. Container number 1, or child container 1, is set to 300 pixels in width. Child container number 2 is set to 600. So that means I'm getting a 40 gap here. Now, I am actually going to mess around with that later on. I just wanted to put it in there as a holder, but I will be modifying that later on and you'll get to see that. And then we have child container number 3, which is basically it's full width, 100% like that, because it's using up the full estate of the 940 that we currently have. Again, I may adjust that later on once I've got my items in. I will be using loop grid. But we've just gone and done a JetEngine listings. So let's go and drop that in just to show you how it would have looked. I'm going to go here and I'm going to type in listing. And there we have the listing grid. This is from JetEngine. Let me drop that into child container number 3 at the moment. There we go. We have the listing grid. It doesn't really return anything because it doesn't know what to return. So we click the drop down and I'm now going to just type list and you can see sessions listing. Let's hit that, and you can now see what has been returned. So it's gone and brought back the title and the image. It doesn't matter that that image was really big when I created the listing, okay? It's brought it back. So here is where you could, if you don't want to use the loop grid, use the JetEngine listings, and you can decide on the number of columns and how big you're going to have it be. That's a bit probably not great because we've got the word now wrapping over. So when you are building your listing, think about your layout. So you might have a container, you might have a child container, you might have a particular height. If you know exactly what height you're going to go for, space between, you might be wrapping as well with row. Now let's just pop that back to be 3 so that looks okay. You could do a post query. So you may say that I'm only want to pull through everything that has got Ryan Singh in there. So what, because that's not a category or a taxonomy, it's a custom field. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to say that this will be a meta query. I'm going to pop in a trainer. I'm going to say equal to, and I'm then going to type in Ryan Singh. And you can straight away see that it's now only brought through extreme weights. So that allows you to take things a little bit further with what you want a particular show. I mean, there are other options on here as well, enable sliders. But I want to focus on the loop grid, but we are still going to be using the Jet engine. So let me get rid of that for a moment. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to go over and search for loop grid, and I'm going to drop that in over here. And then we're going to go and create our templates. What we're going to do is go and add in some items. And we're now going to build out what our session preview is going to look like. We're going to hit the plus sign and we're going to go for a container like that. I know what you're saying. You're going to look at this and go, damn, that's really, really small and ugly to look at. We are going to mess around with this and then we're going to jump back into it just to make it easier on the eye for us. You could also, if you want, go and create a template in Elementor as well. Just go and create a template. And then what you do is you go and pop the template code into here. Well, you'll see that when we do save them back. So if you don't want to do it here, a bit like the listing grid, go and create it elsewhere and then you can bring it over. You could also have done it all in listing grid and then just copy over the container as well. There's many ways you can make this work for you. Into this container, I am going to go and drop in a post title and I'm also going to drop in a featured image. Now, you're probably going, hey, nothing's coming through. Don't worry, there are 2 ways to help yourself out with this. Number 1 is you could go down to the settings down here and go to preview settings. Now, the reason we're not getting anything back is because this is defaulting to post. Well, we know we don't want to be there. We actually want to be on sessions because it's a custom post type. So go and click that. Then I'm going to go and bring back one of our items, extreme weights like that. Let's then hit apply and preview, and then that will bring back what we got. However, my idea of a layout is going to be 2 items on child container 2, and then child container 3 is going to be 3 items. So basically we get a grid of basically like 3 by 3 by 2. Can't get my numbers out there. So now that we've done that, I'm going to go and hit save and back just to change my layout. Because at the moment, look, the reason it was small is because it was cramming 3 of them into that space that was 600 pixels. So we're going to go and click on the loop grid. We're going to go to columns and I'm going to change that to be a 2. And I'm going to say items per page is also 2. Now I know what my estate is. So I'm going to try and make everything fit within that. Now let's start modifying it. So we're going to go back over to our loop grid and we're going to hit edit template because now we know what our state is. If you were modifying it when it was set to be a 3 across and it was really small, you're not really modifying it to work for what you want. Now, I will just mention that I'm not focusing on the mobile responsive mode here because you would obviously go in and adjust things by going to the mobile mode. But I want to just get across how we can get this to work because we are using a lot of dynamic fields. Let's go over to the very first one. We have our title at the top. I'm going to rearrange that and pop that below the image like that. Again, this is the beauty about using the loop grid or even the Jet engine listings as well. So we have our featured image. I'm going to go and set this to be a full. I'm going to go over to my container and I'm going to just zero out so that everything is now up against the border. I don't mind that because I am going to force a bit of gap between them anyway. I'm going to go over to my featured image, ensure that the image size is set to full because I want to get the full resolution. I'm then going to go to style and I'm going to set this to be 100% width because that is exactly what it would be. Now, I am going to be very specific. I am going to pop in a 300 height and I'm going to ensure that the object fit is set to cover. The reason I'm doing that is because I want all of my items in it to be no more than 300 in width and 300 in height. I want the perfect square. Because if you have got images that are a mixture of square, vertical, landscape, you want to kind of make sure you have a bit of consistency in the layout. So by doing that, that is what happens. And if you set this to default, what happens is that you get a bit of a stretch effect. Let me show you. If I was to go and do something like that right now with 424, that looks totally wrong. I don't know what kind of weight training you're doing, but I would go and speak to your personal trainer. You go and set cover, it now distributes it properly or aligns it properly or doesn't skew it improperly. But let me just pop this back to be 300 like that. And also you do have the ability to go with top center, center, bottom left, and all of that as well. First thing I'm going to do is modify my title. I don't like it being that big. I'm actually going to make it be a white. I've made it be an REM 1.4 and it's a weight of 600. It's a Tahoma, just a system font because this is just a dummy website. I recommend you do custom loaded fonts. And you might want to use a font clamp calculation. I'll put a link to that in the video description as well. That would mean that you could have responsive font resizing from desktop, tablet to mobile. And it's a great thing to do. Let's go and add in another field. And I'm going to go for the class type one now. Now, you could, if you want, go and drop in a heading field like this. Let's just drop it in underneath there. Get rid of the wording. Go and click on the dynamic tag and scroll down until you get to custom field or JetEngine. Click that, and then for our field, I will pick type, and that will return weight training for us. That's one way you could have done it. Or we could have gone and typed in dynamic or dyne, grabbed dynamic field. Let's drop that in over there. And it's already, as well, it's brought over the title. We can't really see it that well. So let me just change the font of that to be a white. And the source of it is post-term user object data. This is kind of only going to give you kind of like some of the standard things that you would normally have within a post type, like your content, your excerpt, your post title. What we actually need is a metadata. So our meta field, we will scroll up there and we will pick type. Now, here's one of the problems, and don't be afraid of this. We instantly get an error, but it kind of gives you a clue over here about callbacks. And it's not that difficult to sort out, so please don't worry. You scroll down until you get to filter field output. You click that, and then I'm going to select one of the callbacks, and you do have a wide range. I'm going to go for checkbox field values. Now, this should only return weight training, as you can see over here. If, however, this was weight training and aerobics, I would then go, well, how do you want to separate them? Do you want to do it with a comma? Do you want to do it with a pipe? Do you want to do it with a full stop? Do you want to do it with a hyphen? So you could add in these delimit. I mean, that's way too many hyphens there. But you can add in a delimiter there. And this will become more relevant when we start to add in further fields. Now, here's what I would recommend you do. I am going to use their dynamic field just because of the flexibility you get with how it returns and also with the delimiter field. I'm going to go and add in the pipe like that. And I'm going to add, sorry, let me just do that properly. I'm going to add in the pipe like that. And we're going to go with the checkbox value. I'm going to modify the style of this, go to my typography. It's already going to default to Tahoma, to be honest. I'm going to make the weight of this be a 500 and I'm going to set the REM for this to be a 1.2. Now you will notice they are quite spaced out from one another at the moment. So I'm going to go back to my child container, go to my layout, and I'm going to ensure that the gap between the elements is set to 0. I'm going to duplicate that dynamic field, and this time I'm going to change it to now show what the cost would be. I can get rid of the filter field output because it's already bringing back the number, so I don't need to worry. It's because it was a checkbox before, you see. If you had a select field as well, you just got to bear in mind that it's kind of going to go, well, what do you want me to pull back? Do you want me to pull it back as a list? Do you want all the values? What do you really want from me? But what I'm going to do is customize this a little bit further. So we have 45, which doesn't mean anything, right? So we're going to go over to where we have customized field output. And at the moment, we have percentage sign and S, and I'm going to go and pop in a pound sign there. And you can see what it's done. It's now gone and popped that in. And if I could put in a dollar sign, you would get the dollar sign as well. In fact, I'll leave it as dollar because I think the international audience, you're probably going to understand that a little bit better. So there we go. We got $45. I'm also going to go and drop in a button so that you can now click this to go and see more. And I'm now going to modify the style of this button. I'm going to change the content to also say, see more. Feed me, see more, feed me. Some of you will not understand that quote. Right, okay, I'm also just going to mess around with the padding. So we got a 5 at the top and bottom, 10 on the left and right. Now, I want my button to be next door to the cost, okay? So I'm going to go to my cost field or the dynamic field, go to advanced, and I'm going to set this to be a custom. And then I'm also going to do it to the button as well and set that to be a custom. Now, at the moment, nothing has changed. So let's go over to our container that contains everything at the moment. When we hit row, it goes all messed up, but don't worry about that. We then go and hit wrap. And what now starts to happen is some of our items start to wrap a little bit. And it's because now it starts to condense the size. They're no longer taking up the full 100%. But we can modify that. I'm going to go to my weight training one, and I'm going to set that to be a full width. So it forces the cost and the see more button to go below. I'm now going to go over to my cost one, and I'm going to make sure this is still on custom, but I'm going to set the width of it to be 75. You could, if you want, go and use percentage. I sometimes like to be very specific over my sizing. So I've gone for 75. And this button over here, there we go, and that fits okay. One thing I did do, which I forgot to do, is set my full width to be 300 pixel. Now, you will recall that I made this be a 300 and this be a 600, and we have an estate of 940. We are going to have a gap in here. So I need to modify this, but I'll do that later on. Let's just get this built out. So we've got extreme weights, weight training, we have our cost, and we have our button. Now, our button isn't perfectly centralized at the moment. So I'm going to go back over to my parent container. I'm going to say align items to be centered. Because if you look here, can you see that button? It's raised or elevated a little bit. When you put to align it to be in the center, it is now in the center. Now let's just space this out a little bit because the items are looking very cramped up at the moment. So we are now going to go over to the weight training dynamic field, and I'm going to say, give me 5 from the top and bottom like that. Now, I want all of those items to actually sit on the image, but I don't want to sit there doing negative top margin, negative top margin, negative top margin all the time. I'm going to drop them all into another container. So we have our container that contains the image and everything else. I'm now going to drop in another container, which currently is here. So this container, we're going to make it be zeroed out. I'm going to go to my layout and ensure it's a full width. We're going to move this to be under the featured image, and then into here, I'm going to drop in all of my fields. Now, I could have done this from the get-go. Now let's move our container up. And there are many ways you can do this. So you could start to use a bit of advanced. So you might go, oh, we're just going to do a bit of negative margin like that. Or for simplicity, you could just go to that container, go to position, set it to be absolute, and then position it to be at the bottom like that, vertical orientation. The trouble with that, though, is the words could get lost, especially when you start to have lighter images. So we're going to go back over to our container, go to style, go and give this a background color like black, like that. And then I'm now just going to drop down the opacity to be something like this. When we hit save and back, we have 300, 300, and 300. But I just want to modify the size of this a little bit. I've modified the width of my loop grid to be 640. Our parent container is a 940. Child container 1 that just contains an image is 300. The second child container is a 640. I'm going to have a 20 gap here and a 20 gap over there. So here's what we do. We go over to our loop grid, which we've already built out. We've got a 2x2 over there. And when I click style, I'm going to say the gap between the columns is 20 pixel. So you can see there we now have 20. We've got a little bit of a gap over here. Don't worry about that. We're going to go back over to our child container number 2, which contains a loop grid, and it's currently set to be a 640. I'm now going to set the width of this to be 620. So that contains 300 plus 300 plus my 20. And then I'm going to go to my advanced tab and say, give me a 20 on the left. That is now perfectly sitting within my 940. 300, 20, 300, 20 inside the loop grid, and 300 again. Now, I've got my 2 items, and the wording there is legible. I mean, I might feel like I need to make it a bit darker. Well, that's okay. Go and click Edit Template. You might need to hit Save. And remember, you can do a lot of this in the listing grid, the listings, for JetEngine as well. Go to my child container, and I'm going to make this be a little bit darker because I think it deserves it, especially where we got that aerobics word over there. We hit update and we hit save and back, and you'll now see the wording there is a little bit more clearer. So what am I going to do for the bottom one now? Because I've already got 2 posts here and I want to continue it with post 3, 4, and 5. Well, this is what you do. You go and copy the loop grid and you paste it into child container or grandchild container number 3. We click on the loop grid and we change the number of columns to now be 3. And I'm going to say the number of items is 3 as well. And child container number 3 is set to 100% width. If you now view that, that is the layout we get. In fact, I'm just going to change the parent container because let's go with 100 and 100 like that. So that is a pretty unique looking post grid that we have there. You could obviously, you might feel like the image is too light in a way, so you might want to make the spacing bigger, go and adjust your values. But we have an image, we have item 1, item 2, item 3, item 4, item 5. But the obvious problem is we've got duplication. Let's sort that out. Okay, you go over to your loop grid. We go over to the content. Let me just move the navigator out over there. We go to query. It's already using sessions. We go to exclude. I am now going to offset by 2 because items 1 and 2 are already above. That was a really simple way of bringing over your post title, dynamic fields, and giving a bit of a preview over what the classes possibly are. In the next video, we're going to cover off creating your single post template, whereby when you now click into here, well, now I need to see the details. And now we're going to be pulling over a load more meta fields from JetEngine's custom post type. It's all good and well having this loop grid that we've got here, and we've split it into 2. We could copy this loop grid, get rid of the offset, go and stick it on an archive template, even stick it on a separate blog page as well, anywhere we want. And we've got a set layout. That's brilliant. And if we weren't going to use the Elementor loop grid, we could, of course, use the JetEngine listings feature as well. Basically, everything we did there, we could do here. You can even offset over there as well. There are query tabs for you. It's really simple. Just go through and you'll work it out. It's simple. But what is the point of all of this? Because when we click, is it actually going to take us to give us more details about these sessions or classes, or even tell us more about the trainer? Nothing's going to happen when we click on this button because we've not assigned it to go to the post. So let's go and do that. Click on the button, and where we have the link, I'm going to click the dynamic tags, and then I'm going to click post URL. That is how simple and easy it was. Literally, that's all you got to do. If, however, you wanted the button to go to somewhere else, so you might have a post URL, maybe you got more than one button. You could have like 2 buttons. You could have one that is see more, and then you could also have another button next door to it that says book now. Maybe you're going to have a separate booking feature or something, like maybe it goes off to another site. Click back on the dynamic tags, scroll down, and you might have another field, a custom field. And if it is set to be a URL, you would then go and pick that. So you don't have to just send it to the post URL. Let's just pop this back to be post URL and then hit save and back. Now when I click on this, it's going to show me more about the sessions. Well, actually, it's not. That's all I'm going to see, the title, because we haven't actually added any of the dynamic fields onto our template at the moment. So let's go and build that out. Back into WordPress, we're going to go over to where it says template, and I'm going to click saved templates. I'm then going to click all, just so I can see everything. You can ignore the header, the footer, and default kit. The Elementor loop item 183. That is actually the loop grid item that we've used over here. Now, if you were building this with JetEngine listings, your template that you've used for this would be sitting inside of JetEngine listings. But we've gone and done it using Elementor's loop grid. I'm now going to create a new template, and I'm going to go and search for single post. Even though we have got a custom post type, the logic is still the same. So go for single post. Let's give it a name. I've called it Sessions Single Post Template because you may have multiple single post templates. Maybe you go and create a separate custom post type, or maybe you're just using the traditional WordPress post. Let's click Create Template. Now you do get the option to use some pre-built templates, or you may have imported one over, and that's not a bad idea if you want to get used to how to build. I prefer to build from scratch, so I'm going to hit X there. And then I'm going to decide on my layout. Now, there are many ways you could approach this. One is to kind of decide on, is everything going to sit in one container? Is it maybe going to be a parent container with 2 child containers? So you might have some text here, like the title, the class type, maybe even the cost. Then you got an image, maybe, like the featured image. And then underneath, you're going to show more details. Don't forget, we had information about the trainer. We got description. We've even got the level, beginner, intermediate, advanced. So there's loads of things we could do. What you could, however, do is cheat as well a little bit. So if we go back over to our homepage and we go all the way to the top, I could, if I want, reuse this, couldn't I? I think I could. And I could replace the items with the top hero banner with what is relevant for the actual sessions or the post or the class. And then I can add further details on below. So I'm going to go and grab this hero banner. We're just going to copy it. Go over to our single post template, and I'm now going to hit paste. So we've just kind of regurgitated something that we had before. Let's now modify the contents of this and make it much more relevant. Let's go and click on the heading. We're going to go to the style. Sorry, not the style. We're going to go to the dynamic tag, and I'm going to go and pick post title. Now, that is going to just say session single post template because it doesn't actually know what it needs to be pulling back yet. So let's go and change that. Let's go down here to settings, preview settings. We then pick sessions because that's the post type. And let's go for calm cardio. You can pick any one you want. And let's hit apply and preview. That title will now change, but the image hasn't. We're going to make this all click into place. Let's now click on the container, go to our style, and we have a background image. Let's delete that image. Let's then click the dynamic tag, and we're now going to pick the featured image. The featured image will now come in, and you can see it there. Now, it's not perfectly aligned at the moment because of the height of our hero banner. So let's go and change that. Let's go for a center. That is now looking a whole lot better. Do bear in mind, though, that this hero banner is quite tall. It is 78. And if we start to shrink it down, we're going to start to lose some of the imagery. So you may want to decide on, is this really the best fit for you? I'm going to go with 70 for now. If you feel like the image needs to be seen in its entirety, you could go with a full page, but I think that's overkill when you go to like a single post template. You could also just go for a separate image that you will show over here. And that is what we will do when we get to the trainer image, but we'll handle that in a moment. Let's now change some more of the details. We have a text editor here. I could, if I want, get rid of that, go and click on dynamic tag, scroll down until I get to JetEngine, go and click custom field, and then select type. And it brings back the word cardio. And that's all good and well, because now I can also go and click advanced, and before it I can type class type colon like that. So we're using an Elementor field to pull back a JetEngine meta field, but we're also adding in some text before. But what if you didn't want to use the text editor? Like I said, if you have watched the other videos, we could have gone here and typed in dyne to get dynamic field. We can drop that in below. We can then go and pick metadata, and then I'm going to select type. Remember what happens though? You get a callback error. Again, don't worry about this. We scroll down to where we have filter field output, and we're going to set the callback to checkbox field values, and that will now bring back the word cardio. Let's just make it easier to see because the styling's not great there. But can we add the word class type before? Of course we can. We go to customize field output. We have %s. So I'm going to type in class type colon like that. And that is exactly the same thing. So there are many ways you can do this with the dynamic field or with the text editor. I don't mind getting rid of the text editor and just using the dynamic field like that. It works perfectly fine for me. You're not losing anything. I am going to get rid of the button though. So we've got calm cardio, class type, cardio, which is kind of obvious given the title. Let's add in some more fields. We're going to go to the second dynamic field, and this time I'm going to pick occurrence. And that will now bring back the word every day, 9 a.m. and 13. In fact, that should say 13 p.m. So I've missed out the p.m. there, my mistake, but we'll let that one go. I'm now going to go over to the style, and I'm going to change the typography for this. I'm actually going to make it be a little bit thinner so it doesn't all have to be in bold. And I'm going to shrink it down in size as well. I'll just copy that, paste the style over there, paste the style there. We'll change the wording as well. Again, this is really quick and easy to do. We go down to field format. I've got occurrence. Now let's do the third one. And this time we'll put the cost in. I'm going to say cost per hour. And then I'm going to pop in the $ like that. I'm going to pick level. And this is the beauty about having all these meta fields worked out for us. You could, if you want, have used remember when we set up the custom post type, if you are watching all the videos, we said do not have the editor because we're going to set up a meta field for the description. Well, that's perfectly fine. But then you would have had to make sure that when you were pulling back your source, you would have to pull back a post term because your editor sits there. And if you're very controlling over what you're going to allow them to fill in and how you're going to position it, and that's why I strongly recommend add your description field in as a meta field. Otherwise, you have editor and it starts to get a little bit disjointed. And don't forget, you could have multiple description fields, description 1, description 2, description 3. And if you break them up into separate fields, it means you can position them however you want. Whereas when you use a WordPress editor, it's all locked into one singular block. So if it's a lot of text, it's a very big block. Now let's just rearrange these items a little bit. So let's go and put the level to be underneath the cardio. Whoops, wrong place over there. So we've got cardio, beginner, occurrence every day, and we'll go for costs like that. It's a little bit disjointed because we've got a bit of a staggered effect there, but I'll let it go. I'm then going to go over to my hero. Everything is currently set as a gap as a 20. And we're now going to just drop that down to be more like a 10, I think works a little bit better. Let's continue and now add in further details below. But this is going to be a parent container with 2 child containers. My parent container will be a 1140. By force of habit, I just sometimes like to add it in. I'm going to zero out the margin and padding. And then into my 2 child containers that I have here at the moment, I'm going to ensure that they are both on full width, but they are 50%, zero out. And I'm just going to copy that and paste that over there. In fact, I'm going to go and get rid of the gaps as well, just so that everything is very, very consistent and I have full on control over what we're doing. So parent container and 2 child containers inside and everything is zeroed out. Let's now drop in extra details. So you know what? I'm going to go and pick this field up here. I'm going to drop it in. You can't see it because it is a white font. Okay, no problem. Let's just go and stylize it and give it a bit of text. I am also going to drop down the weight of it because I think 500 works okay here, but not so much later on. And if you were to go with light, you could get away with that as well. It very much depends on the font family. Sometimes light can be way too thin, so have a look and judge it for what's going to work for you, your business, and your client. Right, let's go down to the content. Metadata. Well, I've already mentioned description, so let's go and bring it in. And you can see what it's done. Now, it does say cost per hour, and we do have the $sign. Don't forget, you know why it's doing that, right? Because we've got cost per hour $sign here with the field format. Just get rid of it. And now we've brought forward our text. Now, can you see what I meant about a lot of text? If you have too much text, this is where I would recommend you have like description 1 and a description 2. Because then description 1 would have been maybe the first 3 paragraphs. And then the second 2, which may be a few more details, you could have put maybe over here in child container number 2. Or maybe you could have had an image in between, breaking it up. One of the tricks with blogs and articles is don't have too much text, okay? Otherwise it just starts to feel like a dissertation. So break it up with a bit of imagery. But we're going to let this one go for now. What I will do is go to the child container that contains this. I'll go to my advanced tab and I'm going to say, give me 30 padding on the right, just to break it up a little bit. Now into child container 2, we're going to go and drop in some images. And I'm going to show you multiple ways that you can do this. So the standard way to do it is you might go over and type in gallery. And of course you got the basic gallery or you got the gallery using the Elementor widget. I'm going to drop that in over here for now. And I'm going to say that my images using the dynamic tag is going to come from the JetEngine gallery. So I go and hit JetEngine gallery, click the spanner or wrench, and now I've got to pick my field, which was the gallery, of course. And those images will now appear. You may decide that you want to have one column, multiple columns, or however you want to arrange it. But can you notice the quality is not looking so good at the moment? Let's go and set the image size to be full. That's looking so much better. And I'm going to set the aspect ratio to be a 1:1. Basically, because we had the square layout coming in like that. Now that works okay. But what if you're not using the Elementor gallery widget? Because you have lots of settings here for how you want to do it. Grid, justified, masonry. Maybe you've got a mixture of vertical, portrait, square images. I'm going to show you another way to do this. And this is now utilizing what you get with JetEngine. I'm going to intentionally copy over this description and I'm going to paste it in over here. I'm also going to go to my child container number 2 and I'm going to ensure that I've got 30 padding on the left. just so that we have a bit of space. In fact, I'm going to change my mind and I'm going to go with a 50. And I'm just going to do the same over there as well, just so we have a bit more breathing space with the way the layout is. Now, into this description, believe it or not, we do have gallery. So what do you think is going to happen when I click it? You're right, the IDs return because we're using media ID, and that means absolutely nothing to anyone, and nothing is nothing, or something is nothing, anything. Philosophical, psychological question for you to ponder. What you need to do is change the callback, because the callback at the moment is just pulling back checkbox field values. If you scroll down and you see get image by ID, you might go, there it is. You click that, and this is what you'll get. One image, but where's the gallery? And if you were eagle-eyed, you would have spotted it was down here. Images, gallery, grid. We're going to click that, and you will now get basically almost like what we had before. The slight difference is that the Elementor ones did have an overlay on there when you hovered over it. And if you don't want to have that, you just got to go to your settings for your gallery and make sure that when you move your mouse over, you don't get that little bit of a overlay on top. I'm going to go in and I'm going to say, make this be one image after one another like that. Now, don't get me wrong. That is quite big, as it was when we did it with the Elementor gallery as well. Let's go to our parent container. Let's go and add in some padding. I'm going to go with 60 from the top and bottom. And then I'm going to go to my child container number 1, and I'm going to increase the width. And obviously, as you do that, you can see what's happening to the images. I'm going to go to about 72%, and then we have smaller images there. Again, like I said, if the images start to become too small, the lightbox may work out for you. We do have a lot of empty gap over here, but I'm not overly worried about that. I've actually remembered there was another field I did want to add into here. I'm just going to quickly hit duplicate. I'm going to go to cost, and I'm going to pick session type. So group, online, or venue, because I think that's quite important. In fact, we'll just move that field up as well. There we go. That's looking much better. Now down here into child container 1, I'm going to go and grab the image widget from Elementor and just drop that in. I'm going to set this to be a full, and I'm going to pick my trainer image. So I'm going to scroll down until I get to custom image, and then I will select trainer image. If you pick post thumbnail, that's going to return basically your post thumbnail, which is the image we've got up there already. But if you did want to bring it through, you could have used a dynamic field and then just pick the relevant image by ID or whatever you got. Or you could be very specific and pick it, and then you could position it to be where you want it to be on your page. And I'm going to go with 270 for my maximum and width. And I'm also going to set my height to be 270 as well. And I'm ensure it is a cover, because that is roughly, if I've got my calculations right, not too far off the size that we have over here. Let's go and drop in a header just to be sat above the image. Let's just call it trainer. I'm going to go back up and pick up this divider line that we've already got in the hero banner. I'm going to drop that in over here. And don't worry, we are going to space things out in a moment. And then I'm going to go and drop in a container as well. And this container is actually going to sit after the image like that. And again, don't worry, we are going to sort all of this out. I'm now going to have this container sit beside the image over here. So I'm going to go to my child container number 1, and I'm going to set this to be a row. Obviously, everything now goes a little bit funny. I'm then going to hit wrap. So now everything wraps. But now you have to ensure that this container over here, this child container, is going to fit here. And I'm now going to shrink the size down until I get to about 60% like that. And I think that's looking pretty reasonable there. I'm going to zero out everything in my margin and padding, but I'm going to say give me about 30 on the left. And inside of here now, I'm going to go and drop him some more dynamic fields. So I'm going to copy that dynamic field from the hero banner, and I'm going to drop it into here. Just make sure it's got the right color text, which it has now. So now let me change the content. This is using the occurrence one at the moment. Let's go and pick trainer, and the trainer name will now come in. But now let's make it a little bit more intelligent. So we're going to go here, and I'm going to type in a trainer name, but I want it to be in bold. Well, that's okay as well. Let's just go and put in B over there and then close it off. So now we have the trainer name in bold. And now let's go and duplicate that. And let's go and pick the email field. If we had another field now, which was a trainer description, which we did not add into the meta field, but I'm telling you now, you could have done that. You could have dropped that in as well. So a short paragraph about who Summer Tilton is, what is her experience, what is her qualifications, how long has she been doing this, does she do any other classes? Let's now just sort out how this looks, because about 40 there. We'll go to our divider line, add in a bit of breathing space. I'm going to go with a 10 and a 10. We got our image, and if I now just show you how that would look, if you imagine you had more images on there going down the side, or maybe you had a column of 2, and by the way, this is this hero banner is a fixed background, so you get that parallax effect going on like that. We get some details, you get your description, and then you obviously got more. Now, the important step, though, is that as you're building this, you may go and hit update at any time, and it's going to say, well, where do you want to display this? You can, if you want, hit save and close, which is below me right now. You could do that. You can do that. It's okay. And at any time you come back in and you make a change and if I just go over here and then you hit update again, it will allow you again to go back over here to add your condition. This is really important. If, however, you again hit save and close and you come back in and the update is not visible for you as in pink, and you keep, look, right now, if I go and hit pink and I hit save and close, and I try clicking it, it doesn't let me back in. It's okay. You have the save option chevron here. You click that and you go to display conditions. That's how simple and easy it is. The most important thing, though, is where does this single post template kick in? You have to tell it that it's got to go to the sessions. Otherwise, it might apply it to your standard posts. Even then, it won't do it properly. So what you want to do is click the drop down and scroll down until you get to sessions. That is your custom post type. And we're going to leave it as all, because I'm not now going to say this is for extreme weights, this is for cardio, calm or calm cardio. I'm just going to have a single post template for all of them. And then I'm going to hit save and close. Now when we click on extreme weights, we can see more of the image. The wording looks okay. We're getting all the images down the side. And the class trainer, Ryan Singh, and we get his email. Okay, now let's go and test out another image where it's a lot more lighter. What about uplift energy? Because, look, can you see the overlay kicking in? These images, by the way, were only 1000 pixel by 1000. So you can see they're not the sharpest. So make sure that if you do add in some images that you're going to use as your background featured image, and it's going to be like full width, make sure you go for something like a 1920 by 1920 or 1920 by 1080. It really does make a big difference into the quality and the pixelation of the images. But again, look, you get the details, class trainer. And the very final one, let's go to dance obics as well. Again, here's where the images you use can make or break the look you're going for. So in this scenario, it might have been better to just have an image over here on the side or just below, or just have a little portrait landscape image or even a square one. But have a very good think about the images you bring through. I can get away with it for this tutorial because I just went and grabbed stock photography images. But when you're building out a site and you're working with a client and they give you very specific images and they want a specific look, you got to kind of sometimes have that conversation about the suitability of the image to the style of what you're producing. But you can see here again, everything is working through, and the very final one we'll go to is spin cycling. We can see him, but we're getting more of the upper part of the room rather than the person of interest below who's actually doing the weights. Someone might even think that's their arm, like they've got many arms in there. But again, the details are all coming through. So you can see how we got our archive almost built out now. And remember, you could use this loop grid on any other page you want to do. I'm only showing 2 loop grids, 2 and 3. You could have 1 loop grid that shows 9, 20 posts. You could have pagination. There's lots of settings for you to play with. But the key bit is that when you do all of that, you now need to ensure that when they click on it, it actually takes them somewhere. And maybe I've not really stressed just how much of this post is built up by dynamic fields, meta fields. In fact, the only field that's coming through that was your standard classic WordPress post is the title. Everything else is a meta field that's coming in. Now, there was something that I forgot to do, and it was using the location, but I'm going to make it be a little bit clever, so stay with me on this. We're going to drop in another container into child container number 1. So I'm going to ensure I'm on child container 1, and I'm now going to go and click container. So that container will now sit down there. I'm then going to pick up this heading and I'm going to drop it into child container, well, grandchild container 1, which is in child container 1, or grandchild container 2 even. Let's just change the wording of this to be location. I'm also going to pick up the divider, and we might as well pop that in. In fact, I picked up the wrong field there. Let me pick that up and drop it in. And then what we're going to do is we're going to pop into here the map. So I'm going to go over and I'm going to type in maps. We get Google Maps, and I'm going to drop that in as well. We got Google Maps, okay? Now, this is only going to pull back the location meta field that we added in. But remember, that was only visible if you had a venue. If you've watched the other videos, that will make total sense. We go over here to where we have dynamic tag. We scroll down until we get to JetEngine custom field. And then I'm going to select location. And that should now bring back Anfield, because that's what I bought, Liverpool Stadium. And I'm now just going to set the zoom of it to be something like that. We'll go for about 15. In fact, I could increase the height as well. We'll go with about 400 in height, just so you can see the location. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to go and copy over that dynamic field again. And I'm going to drop it in over here. But rather than have the description, again, we will just pop in the location like that. And then we'll go and add in a little bit of gap from the top. We'll just go with about a 10. So you can see what we have at the moment. But the problem is we don't want that to be visible everywhere. So let me show you the first problem you're going to get. Let's hit update. When I go to Calm Cardio, we know there is a venue because we've already just kind of tested it out. There's the venue. But there wasn't one for spin cycling. This was just online. So look, when you click it, it says one-to-one group online. So when you scroll down, you get the word location still appear. The map is not visible because there's nothing to enter into there, but we still have the title. That looks totally wrong, right? Let's go and sort that out. And this is a really easy trick for you to do. Let's go all the way back to our post type. We're going to go to sessions, and this is a neat little trick, okay? We're going to go to meta field. I'm going to drop in a new meta field, and I'm just going to call this location, and I'm going to get rid of the question mark there as well because we don't want that to appear. Object type is going to be a field, and it's going to be a checkbox. And the items of this checkbox will be yes, and then a new value, no. And we'll just pop that in as well. And I'm going to say that it defaults to no. So you have to actively go and pop this as a yes. And then I'm going to pick this up and I'm actually going to pop it below location like that. So after session type in a way. I've realized that this actually should have been a radio, but we still have the option yes or no. So we've moved it to be below location and it's now a radio. Update the post type. Now we go to sessions and we're going to go to Calm Cardio because we know that's got a venue. So over here, it says location and it says location complete. You would go and set that to be a yes because it is now complete. Let's go and hit update. But now let's go back a step and let's go to the other one, which was spin cycling. Spin cycling, because there is no venue, it automatically defaults to no, okay? And that is quite important. So you only hit it yes when you know you've added in a venue. Now, if we go back over to our single post template, this child container is going to show regardless, but we don't want that to happen. We're going to go to the Advanced tab, and over here where it says CSS class, I'm going to hit the dynamic tag. I'm going to scroll down to JetEngine custom field, location complete. There you go. But it's still going to show. So here's the really clever bit, right? I then go to custom CSS and I'm going to say if it is no, .no, because the class name will always say no unless you hit yes. So .no, curly bracket, display, colon, none, like that. And then close the curly bracket. That will now not display that entire container. We go to Calm Cardio. We go to the page. The location is there. Let's go back. Let's go to spin cycling. And when you scroll down, it's not there. Look, the location is missing. If you don't believe me, I'll go back again and go to Calm Cardio. Look, you scroll down, it is there. You go back, you go to spin cycling, it is not there. So if you want to show a map, but not everything's got a map, that's a really clever way of how you can hide it by just adding in another meta field to control the class name with a really easy bit of code. Right, .no, display none. I'm quite proud of that little tip. Hope you're enjoying the video series with Crocoblock and everything we've done with JetEngine, but now let's take it a step further with JetSmartFilters. This is where we're going to add filters into our WordPress website integrating with JetEngine, and we're now going to start filtering. Because we went and built like a blog archive. I mean, yes, I know I stuck it on the home page, but you could have stuck it on a blog template or any other page as well. But what if you want to add filters on there? Because you might have like 100 posts. So don't you want your users to easily find what they're searching for? Let's go and install the plugin. Go and click Add New, Upload Plugin, click JetSmartFilters, and then hit Open and Install. When you first go to JetSmartFilters, you're going to get a blank screen. Eventually, this is going to start to fill up with some of the filters that we're going to create. And let's just say you had 1,000 filters. You could even search for them using this facility at the top here. So you can now go, oh, I need to find a particular filter that's using a select feature, or you could search by name. If we go over to the settings, and again, this is pretty damn simple, just like JetEngine, you can now decide on where are your filters going to apply. So are you going to be using a JetEngine calendar? If not, you could get rid of that. Is it going to be applying to any WooCommerce items? Well, I'm not using that as well. Is it going to apply to an Elementor Pro loop grid? Well, we are using loop grid, so I would definitely use that. I mean, I would probably say leave loads of the Elementor Pro ones on, leave the JetEngine one over here, but I'm just going to get rid of the WooCommerce shortcode and the WooCommerce products because we're not using WooCommerce yet on here. The indexer settings should be activated for indexed filters. Basically, this means that every time you add an item, it kind of sorts them out within the backend tables. I'm also going to apply auto re-indexing. By the way, though, I will show you how, even though I've got that on auto, I like to click a button that says, you know, redo the indexing as a force of habit. And I'll show you that when we start building out the filters. I'm also going to activate sessions down here because that's the post type we're touching at the moment. In terms of URL structure, I'm going to leave that as it is. The Ajax request, I'm going to leave that as default. Accessibility settings, it's not a bad idea to enable this, especially if you care about web accessibility. So when they hit the tab, they can actually go through the filters. If you don't have that on, the tab facility isn't going to be there, and I feel like you're losing a bit of, you know, credibility there. Now let's go and create our first filter. Let's go back and revisit our custom post type. So JetEngine, post types, sessions. We've got items like session type. We've even got the trainer. We've got the level as well. And we also have the actual class type. The ones I'm going to go for are the class type, the session type, and the trainer. I'm not going to go for level, mainly because if I was to say you can pick beginner, intermediate, or advanced, if you think about it logically now as a business, okay, if someone goes and clicks beginner, they're not going to see the intermediate classes, and it's far better to say, well, you want to look at cardio, great, you click cardio, and if there are 7 classes for cardio, well, you go and pick and choose which one you want. So you got to think a little bit logically. Just because you may have a lot of glossary items, or you've got a checkbox facility for how they enter it, doesn't mean you have to have a filter for that. So think about what you want to let your end users search for. Let's start with a simple one, and we're going to go for the type over here. So let's go back over to our filters. We're going to click Add New, and I'm going to give this a name. And I'm going to click Checkbox. Now, this actually is quite important. If the type over here is Checkbox, and you go and pick Select, I have found they just don't work very well. Okay, sometimes you might get lucky and it works. I have found that you want to try and ensure like a one-to-one relationship with how it sits within your actual post type as your meta field and how you're going to build out the filter. And I did mention this if you followed the video. Plan out now. Are you maybe going to use this as a filter? And are you going to go for a checkbox, a select, a radio, or a range, or a date period? So we're going to go for checkbox. Then we need to select our data source. And the two obvious options are, do you go for a JetEngine glossary, because we are using a glossary for that type field, or do you go with a custom field? So just remember, was this using a glossary? And if you can't remember, just open it up and you will see that it is using a glossary. And then I'm going to select which glossary it is. Well, it's the class type one. Again, this just helps to keep things very consistent with how you're building, which is why I really like the glossary feature. Is the checkbox a meta field? Well, absolutely. We've got it over here as a meta field. So don't just assume that, oh, well, I've already gone and picked glossary. I don't need to do this. There's a few things you need to do. Now you need to add the query variable. And some people might look at this and go, well, what do they mean by that? It's just talking about the name. And the name here is type. So let's go and type that in. Literally kind of a bit of a ironic word there. Let's type in type. Anyway, there you go. And then we can decide on if we're going to have labels. Now, sometimes I will have a label, sometimes I won't. But I would say it's a good idea to get into a habit of just putting down some consistent wording over here. So I'm going to say, and I'm going to put the same down there for the active filter label as well. That's literally it. Let's go and hit update. Now, before we go and build out the other ones, let's actually now put this into practice. So I'm now going to go back over to where we have all filters. And we've already set this up to do the auto indexing. I'm still going to click apply indexer over there. Just a force of habit, okay? Whenever you change or create one, I would click that anyway, just to make sure it's definitely gone through. Let's now go over to our home page. I'm going to stick the filter above here. So I'm going to click on my container. I'm then going to go over to my widget list and I am going to type filter. And what you will get is a load of filters that are relevant for JetEngine. Again, just like I've said about that one-to-one consistency, if your meta field was a checkbox and your filter is a checkbox, it makes pretty much sense that you're now going to add in a checkbox filter. So I'm now just going to click that and it's currently gone to the bottom here. So I'm going to pick it up and put it out above all of the filters. Now at the moment you won't see anything. Don't worry yet because we've not properly selected it. What I will say though about adding in filters is that I'm adding it at the top because I'm going to have like a horizontal list. You could, if you want, have them stacked below one another. You could also have another container down here. So let's say your layout was 2 child containers. You might have a bigger container, which is say, I don't know, 75%, which contains your loop grid or your JetEngine listings. And then the other 25% child container could be on the left or right, could be usually above or on the left or right. That is where you could stick your filters. So if you were using this with WooCommerce now or anything else, you could have them stacked like that. So you have a lot of flexibility in your layout. Let's go over to our filter and I'm going to type in TY just to get type. First thing we're going to do though is make sure this filter applies to the Elementor Pro loop grid. So if you were using the JetEngine listings, you would have it apply there to JetEngine. If you were using a archive template and you weren't using the loop grid, so if you were using the standard old way of building out your blog archive template with Elementor, didn't say that very well, did I? But if you're using that, you would use the Elementor Pro archive. We are going to use the Elementor Pro loop because that's what we have down here. Remember though, it's not going to modify this image over here because that is just a image. I quite like having the Ajax. If you do page reload, every time you pick an item, the page reloads, which if you've got lots of filters is deeply annoying. Apply on value change, or are we going to have an apply button? So let's go and show that and you'll see the button now appear. There's pros and cons to having that. You know, I'm not totally against it, but sometimes I feel like that's an extra click. You might need to do that. Maybe they're going to be typing like you got a search box and it's free text almost. Then you kind of want to wait until they have finished before it applies. But you need to have a think about your user experience. Are we going to show the labels? That says class type. Now, I know you can't properly see it. So I'm just going to go over and change my style now. Let's go to the item setting. Let's go and set our color to be white. I'm not going to set any particular color for if you're hover or checked, but the facility is there for you. I'm going to make the background color be a full-on black so that you don't get a bit of the background image bleeding through. So we go back to the content tab and I now show the label. You can see it come in. I haven't made it bold or anything because I'm not going to have it there, but you can basically see how you could show it. Now, one thing that I haven't gone over is the actual layout of all of this. So if you wanted to have it stacked, that's what it currently does as a column, or you could make it be a line. Don't worry about how close it is at the moment because we will modify that. 20 from the top, and I'm going to go to child container 2, and I'm going to say give me 20 from the top there as well, so just so that everything is in line. So now we have our filter. Horizontal offset, basically spaced them out. So let's go and give it about 15 spacing there. You can align it to the middle or the right hand side. Left makes more sense. And you can clearly see the checkboxes are not in line with the wording. So back onto the style, go to the checkbox, and I'm now just going to add in 1 pixel just to make it more in line. I mean, you can see here, if you put it to 0, it's a bit too high. If you give it a 2, it's a bit too low. So 1, I mean, you could also do a 1.5 if you felt you needed to, but I think 1 there is pretty okay. Now, there are some other settings available for you. If you go down to additional setting, you've got search enabled, more or less. So let's say you've got loads of items now. There's 100. You could have a more or less item over there. So when you exceed 5, you're going to have text like more or less. Not always a good idea, but if you imagine you've got like tons of product categories, that could be a good idea for you. You could enable a drop down, which kind of slightly defeats the object of why we're doing the whole checkbox. Scroll enabled is more for when you get to like a mobile view. So they're able to like scroll through. Again, think very hard and carefully about your user experience. The good feature though is the indexer option. Apply indexer. So if we apply that, nothing happens. But that is important because when you do show counter, you will get numbers. Now, right now, you're looking at that and you're going to say, but it says 0. But we know I've got, I think, 2 for cardio or 2 for aerobics and 1 for spin cycling and maybe 1 or 2 for weight training. Why are they also showing 0? It's because we're still in the editor mode. And once you update and you go to preview or you're viewing on live, those numbers will become apparent. And I'm going to show you that. Now, there's a few more things we still need to do before we go and test it out. So click on the loop grid. You've got to do this to both of them because I have 2 here. But if you only had 1, you would obviously only do it once. You click on the loop grid and you got to say, is this filterable? And you have to say, yes, it is. It is filterable. Okay, if you don't do that, it ain't going to work with JetSmartFilters. And if you've built out your loop grid and then you go and add in your filters, this setting here won't be available until you go and use JetSmartFilters. So please bear that in mind. The other thing you need to do is go and click query. And down here where it says query ID, you need to add in JetSmartFilters with the hyphen in between. I'll do that again on the second loop grid. We go down to content. We say it is filterable. And on the query, we are going to say JetSmartFilters. This is really, really important. Then we go and hit update. And you can see there, we've got aerobics 3, cardio 2, spin cycling 1, weight training 1. Now, I'm not going to click any of them because I just wanted to show you how you could position it. What I would recommend you do, though, is that you only use filters like this when you actually have one big loop grid. If you have 2 separate loop grids, like what I've done here for this particular layout, it ain't going to work for you very well. Let me give you an example. I click aerobics, I get 1 and I get 1. Very strange that. It's because they're 2 separate loop grids. And one of them is applying an offset down here where it kind of doesn't show the other 2. So what's happening is you're not getting the fuller picture. So for the purpose of what we're going to do here, we're going to make a duplicate of that section. So that is now pushed down over here. We're going to get rid of this container. We're going to get rid of container number 2 as well. In fact, let me just get rid of that fully like that. And now when we view it, you can actually see we've got our 6 items, aerobics 3, you can see aerobics, and we have aerobics down here. Weight training, we only have 1. So if I go and hit aerobics, it goes down to just those 3. And we still have cardio 1, spin cycling 0, weight training 0, because we have cardio over there. So if I was to go and click, say, cardio, you would still see them, but then it would also bring through the one that is just cardio. So it allows you to mix and match what you're looking at. And if I go and click weight training, it would actually bring it back in. So have a think again about your user experience, because some people might go, well, why did weight training come in? Because it says 0, but it's informing you that there are none visible yet because of what you've picked. You go and pick it in, it now appears. If you want to bring them all back in, you can just like reset them in a way, take out your ticks, and they will now appear. And again, if we go and pick another one, like here we got 2 cardio, I go and click cardio, those 2 will appear, aerobics, and that's why we still have a 1 over there. That's a really cool way of doing your filters, but let's go and add in 2 more. Let's go back over to JetSmartFilters and let's hit add new. Now we already have done the class type. We're going to do trainer, which is a select box. And then we're also going to do session type, which is a checkbox. Let's just do the checkbox one again. So just so you get familiar with the steps, we're going to go and give this a title. It's a checkbox and the data source will be a JetEngine glossary. We go and pick session type over there. Is it a meta field? Yes, it is. Let's now go and get our query name ID, and it is session-type. Let's just copy that, pop that in as the query variable, and over here, I'm just going to get the field name that we currently have, and I'm going to say field label and active field filter label as well. So just double check everything is okay there. That is done. Let's update that. And before we go and add it in, we might as well just add in our third filter as well, which is going to be trainer. Now, in this scenario, it's not a great one to use because we only have one trainer per class in a way. But imagine you had trainers that were covering multiple classes and you had your favorite trainer and you wanted to know what they do. So in this scenario, we're going to go for a select because it is a select. Remember, the trainer is a select over there and we can see the word is trainer. Let's just go and pick that up while we're there. This is also coming from a glossary as well. So again, we can pick it. But I do want to show you, what if it wasn't a glossary? What if we had a field that was actually a meta field, and that's where we were filtering from? You would pick custom field, and then over here, you would go and put in your placeholder like search or something. But down here where you have the custom field key, this is where you would go and pop in your name ID. So as long as you can get the name ID, which you can, it's always there in JetEngine, you can do this. But for now, we're just going to go with a glossary again. We're going to pick the glossary, which is the trainer. Now, you don't have to tick the checkbox meta field here because we're using a selector and we're already pulling from the glossary. However, if you were using a custom field, then you definitely want to make sure you go and pick that. But for the purpose of what I'm doing here, the JetEngine glossary, I can leave that unticked. We will hit update. Again, force of habit, go and hit your apply indexer. Rather than me adding in another checkbox, I'm just going to duplicate what we have. I'm then going to go over to where we have our select filter type. I'm going to delete that, and I'm now going to type in ses to get a session type, and you will now see those appear. Now, we can modify this, okay? We could have them side by modifying the custom width of these because we are using row or wrap, or we could just separate them out a little bit and add in a bit of gap like that. In this scenario, this is where having the title isn't a bad idea. So if I was to go over here and now show the filter label, you will have session type appear. And I often find that if you are going to show the label, having them stacked like going down in a vertical looks better, because I find that it sometimes doesn't look great with that. I am, for the purpose of this tutorial, not going to show the label, but you get the idea what it's doing. Remember though, just make sure that everything you've got in here, you're happy with Ajax value change. Are you going to have an apply button or not? I mean, over here again, it's all doing the indexing and I'm fine with that. Now let's go and add in our select filter. So I'm going to go here and type in filter, or I could have typed in select. We're going to go grab our select and we'll drop that in. It's currently gone in between them, but I'm not bothered about that. I'm then going to type in tray to get trainer. This is for the loop grid. Remember to pick that Ajax value change, no apply button. We're going to go back over to our filters. We're going to go to where we've got trainer, and down here where it has placeholder, let's change that to say select trainer like that. And you'll now see select trainer, and you definitely want to do a bit of styling over here. I'm going to have a solid border type, but I am going to zero everything out. And I'm just going to have a one line at the bottom, just so that we have a line. And you'll see what I mean in a moment. I'm going to go back over to my select, and I'm going to make the background be a black color like that. Well, you could, if you want, add a little bit of transparency. There's no harm in that. You know, so we could just make it be a little bit transparent, but not full on. I'm going to reduce my padding, but I will add some at the bottom. We'll have about 4 there. I'll go for 4 all the way around for the padding of the select. So we're styling this. And then I'm going to go and set the width of this to be a full width. We'll add in 10 at the top as well. Now I'm just going to rearrange this a little bit. So we're going to pick the select filter up and drop it below the checkbox like that. Let's just now have a look at how this looks on the preview. So when we now preview our page, we've got our items at the top. We've got our session types. Again, a label might have been a good idea over here. And we also have our select trainer. When you do click on it, you will get that little bit of a border around there, but you can modify that. But we have the select trainer. So if I was to now go and pick aerobics, I'll only see 3. I can see that all 3 of them on group, but they're also venue as well. So if I go and pick venue, you're still going to see the same 3. If I go to trainer, I can see it's Claire Hammer, Ingram Mulby, and Sarah Yao. But let's go and change that because it showed me all 5 trainers, even though it was only relevant to a few of them. So if you go back over for that particular one, and we have where it says, if item empty, it's currently set to show for the indexer options, I'm going to set that to be hide. And this is where you could again have a bit of a think, because I think for checkboxes, it's not a bad idea to show them the options because you can pick more than one. Whereas for the select trainer, it's not a bad idea because it's a select to kind of limit it down. So let's go and update that and go back over to our preview. Let's again go and pick aerobics, and you can see we have those options. Doesn't matter if I pick group or venue because you're only ever going to have 3. But now in select trainer, we only have those names. And obviously you pick the person and it will go to the relevant one. Bear in mind though, if you do go and undo aerobics, because you went and picked in-grid, it will stay on in-grid unless you now go to select trainer and now they will all appear. But with Ajax filtering, it is actually really flexible. So that was JetSmartFilters. And yeah, I know there was quite a lot I covered off in there. And I could have gone at it at a quicker pace, but I wanted you to understand how, if you think about it in a methodical way, you can start to add filters in. Of course, please remember what I created before where I had 2 loop grids. Getting it to work well with one another isn't a great idea, so it works really good if you have one combined loop grid. But I hope this helps you out in understanding JetSmartFilters. Let's take things up a notch with JetAppointment. Now this is an add-on or another plugin for the whole Crocoblock suite, and it works really well with JetEngine. Now there is JetBooking as well, which we are going to cover in a later video. Difference between appointments and bookings is quite simple really. If you were going to go to a dentist and you are now going to book an appointment to see them, that is an appointment. You could also pay for that appointment. You might be booking by a certain day and a certain hour slot. Whereas the booking form or the booking plugins, that is more like where you're booking for maybe an entire day or a number of days. So it might be that you're booking a car for a week or a hotel or some accommodation or a rental site for 2 or 3 days. Or maybe you're going to book someone like a musical act for a wedding or something for the whole day. That's where the booking works really well. Whereas if you're booking for like half an hour or an hour here or there, you know, just like I said, maybe it's for a barber's, maybe it's for a nail technician, maybe it's for one-to-one consultancy for web design services. That's where the JetAppointments kicks in. So have a good idea for what you want to work on. If you're going to be like making bookings or accepting bookings for day and hour or time slot, JetAppointments. If it's going to be like bulk days, so they can do 1 day, 5 days, 20 days, JetBookings. I hope that makes sense. So we're going to go install JetAppointment onto our WordPress website, but we also need to install another plugin as well, WooCommerce, because I'm going to show you how you can integrate with that and also accept payments. Now, I'm not covering off WooCommerce settings. I've got loads of videos on that already, and I'm not even going to add in a payment gateway, but I'm going to install it just to show you that if you were accepting payments, the facility is there. So let's go to plugins, add new. We will then go to upload plugin, and I'm now going to install my JetAppointments. And once you've done that, you might as well add in WooCommerce. Now, if you're not going to be accepting payments, you can leave the WooCommerce out. So you can see the plugins that we now have activated on our website. What we're going to do is go over to appointments and we're going to go to setup. I recommend you go there before you go to settings because the setup actually takes you through a bit of a wizard, and I strongly recommend you do that. Step 1 asks you to connect your post type. So we're going to scroll down until we get to sessions. That's pretty obvious here. Now it does say to you, do you want to add providers? So if you imagine you now have like a drop down or a checkbox where you can select your parent post type, which is sessions. Do you want them to also select another post type? Now, I did not create a separate post type for the trainers because my classes at the moment are one class and it's one trainer. It's not like you have one class and you can pick whichever trainer you want. If, however, you did have a separate post type for trainers, and it's like everything we've done previously with JetEngine, you would go and pick it. So you would say add provider and then you would pick it from here. So let's just pretend we had trainers and they fell into coupons. Let's pretend that was the post type name. you would go and pick coupons. Now, in this example, we don't need to worry about that. Why would you be using the facility for adding providers? Well, maybe you want them to pick the class, like I've said, then you want them to pick the trainer, and then underneath that, you will then have the schedule for that particular trainer for that particular class. That's totally fine if you want to do that, because what I'm going to do here is basically the same kind of process, but I'm keeping it simple whereby you're just going to go and pick your class type. Now let's hit next. These are the fields that will be available to you within the form. Now, some of these are going to be a little bit weird and odd, and you're not going to be sure what they are. Like the provider, well, we're not really using provider. We will have a service, which will be the post type. We have the name, we have email, we have date, we have the appointment date, we have the slot. Now, I want you to think beyond what you see here. You know, when you're like applying for an appointment, it's not uncommon for there to be like a notes section or a comments, like maybe provide further information. We're also going to add in a cost field so that later on, when we do have to link this over to WooCommerce, we've actually got a cost field as well. And we'll also ask for a phone number because that is not there at the moment. So the first field I'm going to add is notes. I'm going to add in another field and I'm going to call this phone. And then I'm going to add in another field and I'm going to call this cost. And that's literally it. Right, now I'm going to hit next. Now all of my classes are actually staged at different times of the day and different days of the week. But as a rule of thumb, from the get-go, what is the minimum and the maximum days and time slots you would want to make available? There will be certain slots. I mean, if you want to allow the person who does the booking to pick whatever time they want, you would go for time picker. If you're going to allow, if the appointment is going to be like a recurring one, so once you book 1 p.m., say on a Monday, there may be a sequence of appointments that keep running 1 p.m. Monday. I'm going to say that we're only going to go for a slot. So if you want to go to this particular weight training session, you would go and pick that day and that time. The duration of these, I'm going to set all of them to be 1 hour. Will there be any buffer time before and afterwards? I think so. I think you should have that. We'll go with 15 minutes before and we'll go 15 after as well. So warm up time, relax time, go and have a shower time. Can you still make an appointment like literally like on the time? So if there's an appointment from 1 to 2, can someone book at 1 o'clock? I'm going to say no. So I'm going to say you must be booked within 15 minutes prior. Now at the moment, the default is 8 to 5 for Monday to Friday, but we have nothing for Saturday or Sunday. I'm going to go and add in a slot for Saturday. What about Sunday? We might as well do that as well. Now, if you want to get rid of any time slots, you can do. Just hit the bin and it will completely disappear. But what if you want to have separate time slots? So let's say we've got 8 till 5, but I also want to do 7 p.m. until say 9 p.m. You go and hit the add sign. Let's pick 7 p.m. and it ends at 9 p.m. like that. So now we have different slots available for you because maybe there's like a lunch break or maybe there's no one available. So you can refine this. And remember, this is like the global slots in a way, or the global appointment list with days and hours and all of that. When we get to the individual sessions, you will refine it specifically for that. Another cool feature about JetAppointment is how you can actually specify particular days off. So I'm going to go over here to add day and I'm going to say Christmas week. And we are going to say that for this particular year, 2023, no one is actually working on, say, the 23rd of December until 26th. You can go and add in extra days. Step 4 is probably one of the most important steps. Are we going to have WooCommerce integration? I'm going to enable that. The second really important thing is, are you going to have a single service booking form or a sample page? Now, what's the difference? A sample page basically means that you can pop that form anywhere you want on your website. It's almost like, it's also known as a static form, right? So let's say I'm going to say book an appointment. I could put it on my homepage, my contact page. I could put it wherever I want. And the idea is that you would go then and you would select your class or your session. So you want to do weight training, you would then pick weight training, and then it would now show you the available slots or times that you can pick. That's great when you want what I call like a generic form that you can put anywhere. The single service one is more for your single post template. So we've created that for all of our sessions. Well, you created one single post template, and when you click on a session, it brings out the details. If you create a form that sits there, when you go to that form and it's already cardio, when you make an appointment, it will also be for cardio. So there's no need for you to go and select cardio, because I would say it defeats the purpose of putting it on the single post template. Look, if I've gone to the cardio page or whatever, I shouldn't have to pick cardio again. It should know that I'm on the cardio, right? Reduce the number of clicks. But if you want to give me the authority to pick my session, then use the sample page. Now I'm going to just enable both of them, but we will actually be working on the single one because I want to show you, well, where do they go? Because they won't be sat within JetAppointment. They will actually go over to JetEngine Forms down here. And again, I'm going to touch on a feature that we did enable in an earlier video, but I want to remind you about that. The other third key thing is, where is the form going to sit? And we are going to go for JetEngine Forms. Now, if you do go and get the extra plugin, which is Jet Form Builder, you may want to use that. But what's really cool about Crocoblock is that you can, if you want, just use the JetEngine form. So that is what we're going to do, and I'm now going to hit finish. Now, if you go back over to JetEngine in your WordPress dashboard, you will notice over here for the default modules, I had enabled Forms Legacy. The reason I did that was so that we would now have the Forms feature down here. Because if I now go over to Forms, you'll see single service booking page and static. That was like the sample one that you could use on any page. This is where they sit, and this is where you will modify and work on them. Now, it's not like a drag and drop facility, because a lot of the features with styling that you would do on the actual page where you go and then stick the form, but this is more for deciding or sorting out the fields and what order they're going to be in. But we will come back to address that later on. Let's go back over to JetAppointment and back over to settings, because there's still a few things we need to do. Even though we've done the setup, it's a good idea just to run through and make sure everything checks out. So the general settings, we have sessions. We are not going to be selecting a provider post type. We also have WooCommerce integration enabled. Are we going to manage the capacity for our services? And I would say that maybe if you are running a class and you're at a venue, maybe you can't have more than, say, 20 people, 10 people, 100 people. So that one could be quite important. So let's go and leave that in. Also, we might as well show what the capacity counter is, because maybe I'm going to book a session and it's me and 5 of my mates. And I go, yeah, let's go there. But there's only 4 places left. Now we're going to have to pick straws and decide who doesn't get to go, or maybe not. Let's go over to working hours. This now is kind of pulling back through what we've already done in the setup. If you don't do the setup and you start working through this, and then you go to the setup, you're going to find that you're duplicating effort, because it will start to ask you to put all of that back in again. So I strongly recommend you do the setup first. Do I want to customize my labels? Or am I quite happy with Sun, Mun, Chu? Do we want to scroll to appointment details after they select the slot? Again, I would say that's not a bad idea. Don't look at that and go, well, that looks quite complex. What do you mean by that? It just means that when you go and pick your date and your time, it will then jump down to where you now add in your details. And I say it adds in a little bit of animation with the way it just moves, which I think is quite neat and nice. And it almost saved the user having to just scroll. And it's a tiny bit of scroll. I'm going to leave this as it is. I mean, you could, if you want, decide that maybe if someone has booked an appointment, but the payment hasn't been completed, do you want those slots to still be available? Well, you might say that, well, someone is about to pay. So if I've got capacity of 20 and say 10 people have said they want a slot, but the payment hasn't come through yet, do I now want another load of people to go and book it? And that's probably not good practice, because then you will get a double booking. So you may want to keep or exclude. We'll just put it onto exclude for now. I'm going to leave the others as they are, but you can see what the descriptions are for them. Let's go over to integrations. Now, if you were, say, running like a yoga class or a cardio class or a webinar on how to design a website, it can be anything you want. You may want to integrate it with Zoom. Now, when you do that, you are going to have to go in and put in your keys and go through the motions of setting that up. But that facility is there as well. And I know people who have used other plugins to bring this in, or then they start worrying with iframe and then things don't sync or connect correctly. So JetAppointment has got you covered for that if you decide to go down that road. Now in workflow, you can actually trigger an event to occur. So let me just say I was going to activate this, and I'm now going to add in a new workflow item. I'm going to say that when the appointment is created, so let's say now they've gone and made their appointment, I want straight away for an email to go to them. So over here, I'm now going to call this appointment email. Send email is the action. You do have other items here like call a webhook. So if you want to get dirty with the data, you can go and do that. The email is going to go to appointment user email. I'm going to say service title with a space. I'm going to add in the appointment start end date, and I'll then add in my email as well. And of course, we can add in an email message as well. So put a bit of text in. I'm going to add in a service meta field and another one, which will be the location. Remember, go and get your name IDs if you're a little bit unsure, and you can add in some further text and information as you want there. Let's go over to tools. And this now is just going to return back the fields that we'd already gone and set up. So if you do forget to do it on the setup, you can do it here, but get into the good practice of doing that from the get-go. We do now need to go back over to our actual sessions down here. So let's click that, and we need to go through each one of these, and we need to now assign the extra information. Let me explain what I mean. I'm going to go and pick, for the sake of what we're doing here at the moment, extreme weights. Let's go in and edit that. The original meta fields that we built with JetEngine are all still populated, but when I now scroll down, we have extra fields appear. Appointment settings, capacity, what kind of appointment is it, the price per slot, and we also have a custom schedule if we want to enable it. So this again is really simple. I'm going to say the capacity for this class is 20. And it is a slot. And the price per slot, if I scroll back up, you'll see is £45. So I'm going to change that to now be 45. So yes, you are regurgitating something you had above, but it's not going to take you too long to scroll up and down to get that information. Now this was set to be every day at 8 a.m. and it is only for a 1 hour slot, and because it states over here a 1 hour session. You could argue that I could have had a meta field here for duration, and I think in hindsight I should have done that. So you would have had duration as a text field, and you could have had like a glossary or a select box for say half an hour, 1 hour, 2 hours, something like that. So we're going to go down here and we are now going to do custom schedule 1 hour. Have some buffer time before and after. Now, when can a user actually book an appointment? Is it any date in the future, or maybe it's limited? So they can book up for the next, say, 14 days. They can't book prior to that. Well, you might want to limit it to 7, but I'm only going to go with 14 days for now. Well, I'm going to say Monday to Wednesday from 8 a.m. Okay, so let's just change that there. So we've got 8 till 5, 8 to 5, 8 to 5, 8 to 5. I'm going to get rid of Thursday completely. I'm going to get rid of Friday completely and Saturday and Sunday. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday, there is no availability going on. Are we going to have any days off? Sure, let's go and add those in. So let's go for Christmas. I did do it on the setup, but because this is now going to be for an individual session, you have to refine it for the individual session. And I understand what you're saying. It might feel like duplicated effort. That is all done. And then I'm going to just scroll all the way back up and I'm going to hit update. Imagine I've now gone and done this for all of them. And yes, I know what you're saying. That's going to take quite a bit of time. But to be honest, if you had 100 sessions on here, you'd have to go in anyway and modify who the trainer is, when the appointments occur, what is the description on there. So you're going to have to put in all of that, your images as well. What we now need to do is go and create the form. Well, we already have the form, but we need to modify it. And then we need to add it to our single post template. So let's go and adjust our form. Go to JetEngine and go to forms, and you should see single and static. We're going to work on the single one. We're going to go and click edit. And here are now the fields that are brought back to us. The service ID, which is hidden. The user email, which is a text. The appointment date, which is the appointment date, and we have a submit button. I do just want to show you though that if you had gone into say the static or the sample page, you then have another field over here called service ID. So why is that here and not on the single one? Well, again, like I've already explained, the single one will already know where you've gone because you're on a single post template. Therefore, you don't need to select the ID again. However, if you were going to allow them to now pick another trainer or pick something else, you could go and drop in extra fields. So let's just go back over to our single service booking form. So at the moment, I've got those fields there. Let's just say I was now going to let them pick another field. So I've gone and hit add field. I'm going to go and hit the pencil. So I've got a glossary field for the level, which is beginner, intermediate, or advanced. Now my classes already kind of tell you what they are in terms of the level. But what if you were allowed to pick? So that maybe there's a session and depending on what level you pick, that is how they will tailor it for you. So I'm going to go to my type and I'm going to pick, say, the select. And then I'm going to go and obviously give it a name, label, description if you want. But down here where it says fill the options from, I'm now going to go and pick meta field. And down here, I would pop in level. In fact, it wasn't called level. I think it was called session type. So that field would now be visible for you once you've hit apply changes. So when we eventually add the form, you could go and select beginner, intermediate, or advanced. I don't actually want to have that in, so I'm going to get rid of that and hit the X over there to just remove it because I'm going to keep this simple. But I just wanted to show you that if you were using the single service or even the static, and you wanted to add in extra fields, you could do that. Remember, we did add in 3 extra fields. There was cost, phone, and notes. So let's go and add them into our form. We're going to hit add field. We hit the pencil. I'm going to select number. I'm going to give this the name phone, and I'm going to give it the label phone. You'll notice I've put the name in lowercase because the name is the one that will actually sit in the database. Label is the one we actually see, so that's the one I'm going to pop in capitals. And I'm going to say that it is a required field, and then I'm going to hit apply changes, and then I'm going to add in another field, and this one we are going to set it to be a text area. You could do WYSIWYG if you want, but we'll leave it as a text area. I'm going to call it notes. Put the label as notes. It doesn't have to be required because they might not all want to complete that in. And I'm going to say add further comments. Let's hit add apply changes. And then the last thing I'm going to add is the cost field. So I'm going to make this be a calculate field because what you have to remember here is that the cost is already predefined. If you go and add in a number field, they might go and type, well, I'm going to pay $1 for this weight training, which you definitely don't want. Let's go and change the label over here to be cost in lowercase and then capital cost over there. But what we now need to do is tell it what to return. Now, what you don't want to do is go and type in 45 because then that's going to apply 45 for every session, which makes total no sense. What you need to do is actually scan down here, and it does give you some examples. Now, you may look at this and go, well, I'm going to use a percentage field, : cost, percentage sign, because the field is cost. But what you actually want to be using is this field over here. So when I pop this in here, this macro returns the appointment price. You can decide on what is your value prefix. So I'm going to go and pop in $ there. Obviously, with your WooCommerce, you would have set your currency up and all of that. So make sure they are consistent. Let's just go and hit apply changes now. If we scroll back to the top, we've got service ID, which is hidden because it basically picks up what the session type is or the class. You got the email, you got the appointment date, you got the book now button, submit button, sorry. Let's pop that to the bottom. What we are missing though is the name field. Let's hit add field. So I've gone back over to appointments. I've gone over to tools and I'm going to add in a new field and I'm going to call this one name. I'm just going to save and update the appointments table, go back over to my form, and I'm now just going to ensure that we've got text, and I'm going to change this to be name, pop the name down there, and I'm going to say that this is a required field and apply changes. And I'm now going to pick this field up and I'm going to pop it over there. So there are all the fields that I want to be returned back over to me. Now that we did have a user underscore name field that you could have used as well, but I just wanted to show you that if you forgot what it was, you could just go and add in a brand new name field. Now what happens after you hit submit? It's going to basically insert the appointment into over here where we have appointments, where at the moment we'll have nothing. Let me just go and hit the pencil on that. So look, this is what it does. Insert appointment, service ID, it's going to have the user email field. We might as well get the name as well. So look, let me now pick it because it's now been added to our list above. Are we going to have in any notes? Well, yeah, let's add that in. What about the phone? Let's do that. We might as well put the cost in because they're there anyway. Now, it does have the name field twice. And that's because we already had user underscore name. So go back in the video to when I was first doing the setup, there was user underscore name. You could, if you want, use that instead and not add in the name field. But I just wanted to show you that if it wasn't there and you wanted to add it on the fly, you could have done so. We don't have a separate provider post type. I've mentioned this previously. We're only doing it on sessions. But if the trainer was a separate post type, we would have obviously have pulled that in and you would have had the fields there. I'm going to set the WooCommerce price field to be cost as well. And then I'm just going to adjust some of the WooCommerce mapping fields. So I'm going to say the first name is there. The email address is the user email, and that will be it. That's all I'm going to pop in there. Now, the next thing you want to do is now decide on further actions. So we've done the insert appointment, or we've adjusted it. I'm going to hit add notification. And we're going to get send email, and I'm going to add in another one, which again is send email. And I'm going to click the pencil and I'm going to change this to be redirect to a page. I do want to just show you though that you do have other options on here. So if you are connected to a MailChimp or ActiveCampaign, we'll basically add that appointment to a mailing list, which isn't a bad idea. But for simplicity, we're going to go with changing this to be redirect to a page. And if we had another page, a thank you page, or another page where we now wanted to show them, say, some shopping items maybe, or something about future events, or even take them elsewhere, they could click that and they would go there. I've got rid of that because I'm not overly bothered by it, but I just wanted to show you the steps. The key one, though, is send an email. And I know we did that in the setup and settings, but what you now need to do is define it with a single post template. To send email, the email will go to yourself and it will probably say new appointment made. And then you go and decide on your content, dear, thank you, whatever you want to put. And you have a list of fields here and you would basically write out your email. You might say, so let's just take the name field here. And I might say, dear, hi, whatever, right? So you can make it work for you in terms of what is your layout. By the way, I must stress, though, that just having the word booking there is a little bit misleading. So I'm going to change it to be appointment. But in fact, I'm going to change the whole thing to be appointment form, because later on, in later videos, when we add JetBooking, it's going to say the word booking again, and I don't want to confuse things. Let's just hit update for a moment. Let's now add the form to our single post template. Go to WordPress, go to templates, click save templates, click all so you can see everything you've got. There is our sessions single post template. Then hit edit with Elementor. Now, there's many places I could go and drop the form. I could drop it up in the hero banner. I could drop it above the description. I could drop it on the right hand side. I could create a sidebar. There's many places you can do it. For simplicity though, I'm actually just going to go and drop it below the location form. In fact, no, we'll drop it above the location form. So over in our widget list, I'm going to type form, and it is this one over here. If you drop that form, that's your standard Elementor form. In fact, even if you try and type in appointment, you won't actually get an appointment form. What you want to be pulling over is form, like that. So we're going to pick this up, and I'm now going to drop it over there. And I'm just going to double check where it goes, and I'm going to lift it up, and I'm now going to pop it there. Now, I'm just going to give it some advanced margin separation from the item above, and I'm going to go with about 40. No, we won't. We'll go with more than that. I'll go with 50 there, and from the bottom, I'm going to say give me 50 as well, just so we have a bit of spacing. Now, our form at the moment doesn't know what to do. It's going to say, please select form to show. So we will now go here, and I'm going to type sing to get single. I've kept it quite static, single service appointment form. It's not a bad idea to name them accordingly, especially if you're going to have 20 different forms. I would never recommend doing that to many because it'll get complicated. And when you do that, you will now see all of our fields come through. We got the date, name, user email. I mean, we have got the word user email. I am going to go back and modify that because I now realize I don't like that word whatsoever. So we will modify it later on. We've got phone, we've got cost, we've got notes, we've got book now, form submitted successfully. There was an error. These messages will only appear as they complete it. So let's go and modify this form for starters. Is this going to be a column layout or is it going to be a row? And if you go for a row layout, you can see the changes. It very much depends on your layout. This is currently restricted into a particular container that we have, a child container. So it's not taking up all the space that we have over here at the moment. The column works okay, but it does make the form quite long. If you go to row, it simplifies it a little bit more. And I have to say that does look a little bit nicer. Do you want them to stay on the same page, whereby when they click it, it just Ajax submits it? That's not a bad idea. If, however, you want the entire page to reload, you could also go for that. I think the Ajax submit does kind of work so much better. If I go to the advanced tab and I set it to be a custom width, I can adjust the width of this. So that is the full width, give or take the extra padding right I put in there of that form. Well, the child container. So if you want to have it wide, you can make it wide, or you might actually find that actually that kind of works pretty well as well. If you wanted to, you could put more items in down this side as well. So, you know, with a bit of row and a bit of wrap, you can modify how this looks. Don't forget you do have row gap, which I will leave to be a 5. And let's go and set up our typography. So for the labels, I've made them be a 1 REM, and I'm going to make them be just a little bit weightier. I'm going to shrink down the gap between the labels. It was set to 30 at the moment. I'm going to bring them in to only be 20. I could align them to be on the right-hand side or the left. I think it makes perfect sense for them just to be centered and on the left there. I've also increased the row gap to be 10. The border type does look quite thick, so we're going to ensure that it is just a 1 and a softer grey like that. And then you have further settings for checkbox, calculated fields, all of these down here if you start to bring them over. The key one for me, though, is just a submit field. I'm going to set the background color to be this orange color. Ooh, not that one. Looks way too dark because we have a white background here at the moment. We're going to go for a white there, and we'll make the typography be, we'll make it be a 600. And I'm going to move the button to be on the right-hand side so it feels like you complete it and then you hit the book now. I will add in a hover color though, and I'm going to say the background for that, when you hover over it, will go with the dark there. So when you hover over it, you have a bit of color change. What we haven't done though yet is touch the appointment calendar. And again, this is one that you may want to have a think about. So at the moment, if I go and start to increase it, you can actually push it out more. So you may feel like that's too narrow. I think that size is actually okay. If you want to have a wider size, you could do. You could also mess around with the margins and the padding, the heading, the typography. What will happen though is that when you click this, the slots will appear. And well, let me show you what happens. Okay, so if I go and hit update for a moment and I now click one of these dates, can you see what we get? We get this opening up like that. And I have to say, it really does not look good at all. So let's just make sure we are currently clicked onto the appointment calendar. I'm going to zero out the margin and padding, and I'm going to say from the bottom, give me about 30, just to push down and have a bit of breathing space from the field entries. I'm going to zero out the padding for my slots, and then I'm going to modify them now to be 10 all the way around like that, just so it looks a little bit better. I will give it a border type as well of a solid. I really don't like that. Let's go for a 1. Let's drop the color down. And then I'm going to go and give it some padding inside. So I'm just going to zero out for now, and I'm just going to say, let's go with about a 5. Let's just see how that looks. You do have to keep clicking on it. But what you now get is like, if there was like a capacity, that's why we've got the 1 there. This is just a template. So it's not bringing back the 20, I think we set for weight training. But you can see 8:15 and 9:15, and we can now see our slots. I'm going to zero out the margin, and I'm going to say, give me 10 like that. So you can start to control how it looks. And you have so many features over here, okay? If I wanted to now go and make this have a different background color, you could do. So please don't feel like, oh, is that how it looks? I don't like it. No, you have a lot of styling there for you. You can stylize the month. You can stylize the days, all of the values. That is, in simplicity, the form now built. Let's go and see it in action. So I've gone over to our page, and I am intentionally going to go and pick extreme weights because that's the one we've kind of entered in those extra appointment fields for. When we scroll down, we got the trainer and we've got his slots. Now, you got a location below. Now, you could, if you want, have put all of this into like a container. I mean, you could have had it overlapping the hero banner down here, push everything else further down or rearrange it. So it's kind of there in your eye line when you get to the page. There's so much flexibility. Now, when we get down, remember I made this trainer or this session. You can't book it in the future. You can only book for the next 14 days. Look, the slots are not available. If you go back here, you got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. There is nothing on there for Friday. There's no available slots. There's nothing for Thursday either. But if you were to go to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, any one of these, you can now see the time slots appear. And there are 20. Remember, that's the capacity we set. So let's go in for, say, the 17th, and let's go and secure the 9:45 to 10:45. His calendar starts at 8 o'clock. There's a 15-minute buffer time, and it runs until 9:15. And then you have 15 minutes buffer time afterwards, so that will take it from 9:15 to 9:30. And then the 9:45 session, because there's a 15-minute buffer time before, that is why you have a 30-minute gap going on here. So you may have to play with it a little bit, because you might look at it and go, oh, I don't want that big gap. Fine, go and adjust it then. Maybe reduce it to 5-minute or 10-minute. But play that in your mind, okay? Every appointment has a buffer before and a buffer after. Let's go for 9:45 to 10:45, and you can see the appointment details, extreme weights, October, Let's go and pop our details in. Please be gentle with me. And then when you hit book now, I hope you saw the message that said form successfully submitted. And then it comes over to the checkout page. You would obviously pop in your details. Now I've just set this up as a fake direct bank transfer. You would obviously do it with PayPal and Stripe and whatnot. You would hit place order. The emails would fire off. The appointment is then set. And if I go back over to WordPress and I go to appointments and appointments, you can see here that it is now been entered in. It currently says on hold. Why is it on hold? Well, that's because the payment's not currently been done yet. So you might want to go and let them know. And if and when the payment does go through, you can go and click the pencil here, and you could then say, right, this is now completed or not. We'll leave it on hold for now, or you might set it to processing. Now you can see that some fields have not pulled through. That was just due to the mapping, but you would go and adjust that. And I always do recommend that whenever you create an appointments site, go through and test it out to make sure everything works perfectly. And if they had gone through the checkout process, then you would have your order appear here in WooCommerce as well. Now that was JetAppointments with a single post template. If you didn't want to do it on a single post template where it feeds through who this is for, you could have done it as a static one. So it's basically the same thing, but now what you'll have is the service ID drop down or select box appears. It's in there when the form creates itself. You could then go and stick that on your blog page or any other page, but it would work in basically the same way. As I've just stated moments ago, please take the time to pop in your fields and test out. And when you notice that there's a gap, go back and refine either the form or what you're doing on the field, or go and check your WooCommerce settings as well. But JetAppointment, you do have to think a little bit, okay? You got to set things up and then methodically go through step by step, and you'll get there. What if you didn't just want to book out a trainer for a 1-hour slot, or you didn't want to join a class like a one-to-one or a group class or something like that? You know, for cardio and weight training. What if you actually wanted to like book out the venue, or maybe even book out a session with the trainer for 2 days, 5 days, right? And you might have many people coming along, or you might only have 1 or 2 people, but basically you want to do like a booking. So this is where the JetBooking plugin comes into its own. We've been using JetAppointments if you've been watching the previous videos in this series, whereby you would book an appointment slot. But now we're going to explore booking it for a longer period. So you could imagine booking out a car for a car rental site, booking out a room in a hotel, booking out apartments. But in this scenario, we've got trainers for cardio, weight training, aerobics. Let me now explore the opportunity for you to book out that trainer for that class for longer periods. So let's go and install the JetBookings plugin. Go to Plugins, Add New, Upload Plugin, and install JetBooking. Then go over to Bookings and go to Setup. The Setup wizard will ask you to decide on plain mode or WooCommerce based. Now, there is a bit of a difference here. If you go for the WooCommerce, and I will select it just to show you what would happen, and I hit Start Setup, that's basically it. Then what you would do is you would then go and create your first booking product. And your booking product is actually then created within WooCommerce products over here. So watch this. If I go to create first booking product, we're now in WooCommerce products because we've got WooCommerce installed as well. So you would go and create your product. So it might be like a venue hire. So let me just go and do that. I will go and pop in venue hire. I would then obviously put a description in. I would go and decide on the prices. Is it a price per day, night? So I might say it's going to be like $1,200. You could add in seasonal prices as well. So you might have a more expensive price for summer breaks or Christmas week or something like that. You can go and add in your schedules with what days are available. So what days must you check in? So maybe you can only check in on a Monday and you can only check out on a Friday. So you must be booking like from Monday to Friday. And are you only going to allow week-long bookings, for instance, as well? Minimum days, maximum days. So it is quite versatile in what you can do. But have you noticed that throughout, nowhere am I adding in my custom post type or these sessions, which is our post type there? Nowhere. So this is like a very simple way of you adding in a booking system whereby you can allow them to book venues, etc. The purpose of why we've added it, though, is because we want to use it with our existing post type sessions. So you could either have a 1 hour slot, which is Jet Appointments, or with Jet Booking, you could maybe book them out for 2 or 3 days. So what we're going to do is go back over to bookings. We're going to go over to setup and we're going to reset the data. Now, I'm not bothered because I'm not creating any products or anything like that yet. So instead of going for the WooCommerce based route, which is simple and easy to do if that's how you want to do it, because you're not creating a custom post type. You're just going to create a booking system and you're going to go and create your products, okay? You know, venue hire, DJ hire, car hire, room hire. That's what you want to do. But if you've got a post type, you really want to be going for the plain mode and hit start setup. Now, the first thing you want to do is go and select your post type, which in this scenario is sessions like that. Then hit next step. Now, just pause for a moment because it will now say order post type. And a lot of you may suddenly jump in and go, well, I'll pick sessions again. In actual fact, we don't want to do that. I'm actually going to use the WooCommerce basic integration because we're going to ensure that when you are paying for it, you go and hit the cart or the checkout. So I'm going to hit next step now. Then we get the option to go and add additional fields. And again, this is quite important because if you follow the Jet Appointments videos that we've done, you are limited as to what you will be able to show on the form. And I think it's a good idea to collect some further information. So we're going to go with, well, not just collect, but also show. So I'm going to go with total cost. We're going to go with a 10 Ds as well. And I'm keeping everything in lowercase. And I'm going to go for the name as well. And then I'm going to hit next step. Don't worry about the order of them. We can rearrange that later on. And all you got to do now is hit finish setup. Just like Jet Appointments, once you've gone through the setup, now go over to settings. I'm not going to change anything on the general tab. I won't change anything on the label either. You can do if you want. So if you feel like you don't like the word chosen or even sold out or, you know, expired, you could put something else in there, expired, you know, not available. You know, you could refine it to work for you. In the Advanced tab, I will enable iCal synchronization. And I'm going to change it to be once hourly as well, which is not a bad idea if you want to ensure that you've got your own calendar system elsewhere. Because if you're not logged into WordPress all the time, you know, you want to make sure that if there are bookings occurring, you are notified or you're made aware of it, especially if you want to prevent double bookings. The configuration tab is quite important. If you're booking a hotel room, or a cruise, or, you know, you're staying over somewhere, per night makes absolute sense. But in this scenario, because we may be booking a venue or some training sessions, per day is the perfect choice. Are we going to only allow them to book you for 1 day at a time? Or can they book multiple days? If you go with this and you book them for a Monday, you can't say, well, Monday to Tuesday. It can only be Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday. Or are you going to allow them to pick multiple days? Let's just pretend and go for multiple days. Maybe they can only book you for an entire week. Probably overkill for cardio, right? But if you want to do that again. And this, again, is something that can be really useful for, say, certain venues where it's a really exclusive venue and you want to really maximize the revenue you get out of it. So if you want it, you got to have it for a 7-day period. You can also specify the minimum days and the maximum. Of course, I'm just going to pop in one, so it's got to be 1 day, which obviously it would be. But in terms of maximum, let's just go and pop in 10 days, just so that we can see it in practice. So you got to be 1, but you cannot do more than 10. What about the scheduling? And again, this is something that pretty much intuitively makes sense, really. If we are going to say, are there any days off? Let's just go and add in the 23rd until 1st of 2024, and we're going to go and hit save there. So this is something that I think a lot of places commonly do. You know, there may be periods where you're not available, or you've got a booking from another system maybe, and now you want to because you might have done it manually over the phone or email, so you want to put it in, or you're just not around. We're going to go over to the Tools tab, and I'm just going to rearrange these fields, not that it makes a huge amount of difference. So name, total cost, and attendees, which is what we've got here. So this is where in the setup, we went and added 3 extra fields. You could, if you want, go and add in some new ones now. So if you didn't do it on the setup, you can do it here. But I always say, go through the setup first, because that's why it's called setup, and then just double check and do further refinement in the settings tab. Now, if you click on bookings within the bookings part, you're going to have nothing there because we've not added anything in yet. Now, very similar to what we did with JetAppointments, if you haven't watched it, go watch that video. You will have the facility to either have like a static booking form, which means you could put it anywhere on your website, and then the user would then select their session type. It might be cardio, it might be weight training, etc. Or you could put it on a single post template, and I'm going to go with the single post template. So we're going to go over to JetEngine, and we're going to go over to Forms. It does say here static page booking form. You can almost ignore that because that was actually from the JetAppointments plugin. But we are now going to create a new one, which will be for the booking. It's very simple and easy for you to actually just duplicate one of your existing ones, which is what I've done. And I'm going to go in and rename it. So we have single service booking form. And let's now go and edit that. So I'm going to go to the single service booking form. Now, a lot of the fields on here, we're going to jig around because some of the IDs are now no longer the same. Now, the service ID we're going to leave because that's the single post template. You've gone and clicked and now you're on that particular page. The appointment date is a little bit misleading. This is only relevant for Jet appointments. So you want to click the pencil and you want to go to the type. We need to go for check-in, check-out dates. Even if you're only booking for 1 day, it's going to be the same day, right? So you've got to make sure it's a check-in, check-out. We'll have a single field. If you want to have them separated with check-in, check-out, the way it presents it, you can go for that. I'm quite okay with a single field, just to keep things quite concise. I'm also going to say it is an inline. You do have the option for going for a list. I'm going to say check-in. And I'm going to say check out. Now for the date format, you do have various options. Because I'm based in the UK, I'm going to go for DMY. I'm going to leave it as hyphen as the field separator. And I'm going to say the first day of the week is Monday. You are limited to your options, Monday or Sunday. But in the UK, we tend to go with week commencing Monday. Now, because we've used the appointment date field, it says appointment date. Now, if you did not have Jet appointments, you may have something like underscore date showing there. And if it has that, I would leave it as that. But because I had appointment date, I'm modifying it to say underscore date. And I'm going to pop the label in for check in and then backslash or forward slash out. And then I'm going to hit apply changes. So we now have service ID and we have check in and checked out. The name field over here is actually a custom field. And again, please go and watch the Jet appointments if you're not sure. So I had 3 additional fields, which were name, attendees, and total cost. So let's go to the name one first. Check that the name ID over there is the same as what we had put in, which it is. So we can leave that as it is there. The user email will already be provided for you on the booking form. The phone number, now that is someone we actually did miss out. So now that I'm aware of it, what I'm going to do is go over to my bookings, go over to my settings, go to my tools, and I'm going to add in a new field. So I'm going to call this a phone. And then I'm going to say update booking table. So that is now added in. Because otherwise, you're going to get a bit of a mismatch and an error going on there. Let's go back over to JetEngine, go over to forms, and let's go back to our booking form. We've got cost, which we know is no longer called cost. So I'm going to change that to be total cost like that. And I'm going to change the description as well. Now, at the moment, our calculation field is pulling back appointment date, because remember, this is a copy of the JetAppointment one. Instead, what we want to go for is the booking macro. So not the appointment macro, which is what that is. We want to go for this one. So we're going to copy this and we're going to paste that over there. Let's go and add in our attendees field as well. So add new field. I'm going to change this to be a number. We're going to say the minimum value is 1 and the maximum value is 100. And I'm going to hit apply changes there. I'm going to lift this field up and I'm going to put it above the total cost. In fact, I might rearrange this a little bit. So we'll go with attendees, will sit underneath check-in and check-out, and then we'll have the costs like that. And then obviously you then pop in your details. Now we're going to go back to the total cost one though, because we've now just gone and said that you can have number of attendees. So we're now going to go and pop in an asterisk to say multiplied by, and I'm going to type in attendees over there. So if our price was say $1,000 a day, you've got 10 people coming, it's now $10,000 for that same day because you've got 10 attendees multiplied by the total cost. Or is it going to be a total cost for the venue regardless of how many attendees there are? So you have a choice to make. For simplicity, I'm going to say that if you're booking out the venue, it's not per person, it's almost like you're paying per day in a way, which is what we already said. One thing you do need to change though on here is it currently says check in, check out. And again, it's really easy to go, right, that's it. So check in, check out. Remind yourself though that when you go up, you did not call it check in, check out. Don't look at that. Look at what it says here. It is underscore date. So what you need to do is go back over to your cost field and ensure that this says date like that. Because if you don't do that, you will make a mistake and you'll assume it basically hasn't got anything to calculate against. So apply changes. Yeah, so that's the calculation you add. It gives you it, you copy it in, and then modify it to be what is the actual date field that you're pulling through. Now we do have insert appointment over here. We're going to change that. So we're going to click the pencil, and rather than insert appointment, we're going to go for apartment booking. I know it sounds kind of weird, right? Apartment booking, but you're doing a training session at a venue, but that's the terminology that's being used. Leave it as that. I'm going to select the service ID because that's what you've already selected by going to the single post template. If you were to have another field on there that had like the trainer name and you had a select box or a radio button, you could go and add that field in here. But the select ID for the service ID not select ID. The service ID makes complete sense. The check-in and check-out date will be the underscore date field. Again, if you forget, just scroll up and you will see it over there, underscore date. I'm going to ensure that we now have a one-to-one relationship with the fields in the database, so these should all match. We are going to enable WooCommerce integration. The price that will feed into the cart and checkout will be the total cost. Let's just click WooCommerce order detail setup. So this is where you can start to feed through fields that will automatically populate. I'm going to type in name and I'm going to select the name over there. I'm going to add in another form field. This will be the email and I'm going to select the user email. And I'm going to go for another one, which will be form field. And I'm going to select phone and we will go for the phone over there. I'm also going to add in the booked instance number. And this will be session. Now, you don't get a drop down there, so you can pop in whatever words you want. You could say venue booked, class booked, session booked, anything you want. Now, the last item I'm going to add, and you might have noticed it, was the Google Calendar link. This, I think, is pretty useful, and I'm going to put the label and text as add to Google. So when you get the email or the appointment, or the bookings, you can now add that to your Google Calendar. Let's go and hit save. I will now just tinker with some of these WooCommerce checkout fields. I'm only going to go over and do the phone over there. It's not a bad idea to go and modify the send email now. So where are you going to send the email? Is it going to go to admin, which would be yourself? Is it going to go to the person who's actually gone and booked it? So email from the submitted form. And then you'd go and select user email. I know this is a bit misleading, isn't it? Mail to from field. No, the from bit is actually down here. So if it's now if the email is going to say the end user who's completed this, you want it to go to the user email. Don't get misled by what the from field is. Then you're going to pop in your name. What is the email address they can obviously reply to, like a support email or something like that. And then over here, you're going to go and put in your context. You would go and pop in something like dear, and then we'll pick up the name field here. Then you're going to put something like thank you for your appointment. And you've got fields down here. So you could pop in the date. You might say check in, check out, and then you pop that in. You know, total attendees, total cost, for instance. And you have a range of other fields here as well. My advice is play around with it, you know, and then do like a test booking, you know, go and put in a value of $0 or $1, whatever, and check that everything goes through your payment gateways. You get an email, they get an email. So you would have to probably set up like a couple of emails there, you know, send email to the customer, send email back to yourself as well. Right, I'm just going to apply changes there. What you may also want to do, and I would recommend you do this, is add a notification but redirect to a page. And it might be something that says thank you, or it might be an upsell, or it might just take them to some other part of your website. But a thank you page, or just to let them know what is going to happen next. For instance, we will be in contact. You will get an email. Please check your junk spam email. There's nothing worse than when you do a booking and it says it's done, and then you sit there. An hour goes by and you go, well, I haven't had any notification. Did it actually go through properly? So, bit of a key thing I would recommend with a redirect page. So that has all been updated. And yes, there is a bit of legwork there. Now, there is a facility, though, whereby when you are first using JetBooking, it does give you the option to use JetForm Builder, and it does install that for you. That means that you can build the form step by step to look how you want in a much funkier way. And in a future video, I will cover that. But for the purposes of what we're doing here, I'm just using the JetEngine Forms feature that is enabled for us there when we install JetEngine. Now let's go and add in some further details, okay? Because all we've done is enable loads of fields and we've put them on the form. But we actually haven't said what the prices are. So I'm going to go over to sessions, to where we have our sessions, and I'm going to go to extreme weights. If I now scroll down, you will see additional fields have become activated. We had the original fields with where you could select your trainer and your descriptions and images. And then we had the Jet Appointment, which we're not using now because this is focusing on Jet Booking. So you will get to pricing settings. This is what is relevant for the booking. So we're going to go in and say that if you were now booking for weight training, you could get it for $500 per day. Remember, it's been set per day. But you could, if you want, add in additional prices. So if I was to go with add rates, I can now add in different rates. So I might say, if you book for 1 day, it's $500. If, however, you book for 2 days, you get it for $480 per day. So the total cost would be $960 because you get $40 discount. 480 times 2, right? That's $20 off per day, $40 off for 2 days. Let's go and do a bit more. So we're going to say if you do it for 3 days, you will get it for $460. If you do it for 4 days, you get it for $440. And if you go for 5 days, you get it for $420. So there's like discounts are being built in. And when you hit cancel, you return back to the screen. Don't worry, they are all still there. You could also add in a weekend rate as well. So you might say if they book you on a Saturday, the price actually is higher because of the Saturday. So you might go with, say, $600. And if they decide to book you on a Sunday, then the prices go up even more and it's now £700 per day. So you're kind of saying, look, I'm available, I'm willing to be there for you, but the prices do start to go up. What about seasonal prices? I'm just going to go with October 31st, and I'm going to say the price for that day is $2,000. I don't know why, for some reason, there's something special going on there, and that is the particular day where you have to pay a premium. So I'm going to say the start date for that is on the 31st, and it ends on the 31st as well. And you can add in more prices as much as you want. You can set up a custom schedule. Now, I'm saying you can check in and check out on any of these dates. What if there is more than one weight training? So we've got extreme weights here, okay? And, at the minute, there's one class. but maybe there are like 2 like rooms wherever this venue is. So you could then say, right, we've got 2 venues, for instance, like that. And then I click add unit, and what you'll get is venue 1 and venue 2. I could go and edit them. Venue large room, venue medium deluxe sauna room. Sounds really weird, but you can name them. So if you were going to have additional venues, you could do. I'm going to get rid of that because I don't want to have additional venues. So imagine you're like a hotel and you got like 40 rooms, and you go and set your price for a particular type of room, but then you've got 40 units. So when someone books within your booking system, you'll get to see what rooms are being booked. So you know that, okay, we're selling this room, and we've got 40 available maybe, which ones are booked up and which ones are not. So as part of our sessions for extreme weights, we've now gone and set our pricing up. And I've only done it for one of them because that's the one we're going to show in the tutorial. What I'm now going to do is actually add the booking form to the template. So we're going to go over to templates, saved templates, and we're going to click all. Always a good idea to do that. And we're going to go to our sessions single post template. I'm going to hit edit with Elementor. I'm going to scroll down to where we have our form, which was for the appointments. Now, to keep things really, really simple, I am going to just hide this form out of view. And instead, I'm going to go and type in book. And you will now see booking availability calendar. So what we have here is the booking availability calendar. This can be stylized quite a bit, allow them to select the date, obviously. It does say scroll to the form. I'm going to enable that because at the moment we haven't actually added in a form. So please don't be misled. Okay, you've added in the calendar. I pick my dates and away I go. That's not exactly how it works. I'm also just going to go down to my settings very quickly, and I'm going to ensure that I am on the extreme weights. And when you look at this, you'll notice not all of the dates are enabled. Please don't worry about that. It's not until you actually view it on a live screen, because even when you go to preview, it won't properly show it to you. So when you look at it, you're going to go, well, where's all the dates gone? Don't worry too much about that just yet. What we can do, though, is start modifying some of the style. We could go and give it a background color. You can modify the headers in terms of the text, the sizing, the colors. And when you click on some of the days, so if I go over to days, if we go down to where we have the days part here, we go down to where we have background, start and end, and I could go and give it a background color like that. So if I show you this on preview at the moment, there we have our booking form, and today is currently with a black background and a white text. I've set it up like that. If I was to go, okay, I'm now going to book from a Monday to Thursday, it does that, but that's it. Nothing else has returned for me. And this is where we now have to add in the form. All we've done is added in the calendar. So let's go back over to our widget list, and we are going to type in form. Very much like the JetAppointment one, we're going to pick this up and drop it in underneath. So I've moved the new form to sit below the calendar. Don't worry about this one here that is grayed out. Let's just go and give this a bit of spacing. So we'll go for about 30, and you know what, let's just go with 30 at the bottom. Let's go to our content. And for our form, I'm going to type in book, and I should have there the single service booking form. Remember, don't get confused with the static form. That was from the appointment one, which is why it's always a good idea to rename them. Single service booking form, and that will now bring out a lot of those fields. I'm going to change my layout to go from column to row, just because it's a little bit more concise. I'm going to go over to my style, and I'm not going to make much changes over here other than maybe messing around with the row to be a 10. The labels I will drop down to be an REM1. I will decrease the width to be a 20 on the, in fact not 20, that's a bit too small. We'll go with the 23 on the label. I will centrally align the labels as well. And for the submit button, I'm just going to give it a background color, go for a white text. I will have no border and just a bit of spacing like that on the button. And I'm going to just align it to be on the right-hand side. Now you could make this form be as wide as you want. So I could quite easily go into the form, go over to my advanced tab. And I could, if I want, go with say a full width like that. Or I could go to the field setting in style, and I could just mess around with the width here where you do start to push it out. But I will leave that up to you as to what kind of look you want to go for. I mean, I would really say that if you were going to do something like this and your form was only going to be so wide, I would definitely say you want to customize the width of this to kind of match up with that, because it just looks so much better if things are a little bit more consistent. Let's now go and hit update. So let's see this in action now. We go over to our website. We're going to go for extreme weights after we've done a bit of filtering. And when we scroll down to where we have the booking part, we've got the dates. Now, if I go for the 16 to the 16, it should come back with $500. And also it will jump down. Remember we said scroll to the form. Look, if I do that, can you see how it scrolled down? Now, sometimes that's not a good idea. And this is why I wanted to show it to you. Because what if you then realize, actually, I want to change the date? You have to scroll back up. So I would actually say, on your booking availability, don't scroll to the form. That's just my tip. I think it's a great feature to have. But if imagine you pick a date and it now says $1,000 and you go, oh, I wonder what other dates they are. You don't want to keep going up and down. That's not a great user experience. So after doing that change and I now pick it, can you see how it didn't scroll? It's like less movement up and down. $500. Well, okay, let's say I don't want to go for that day. I want to go for a Sunday instead. It's now 700. It's not 1,000, it was 700 we set it at. But if I was to go with a Monday, and then and there you go, that's the Monday date. But I now pick Monday and go for Tuesday, it's 960. Do you remember the day rate? It goes down to 480. And if you then eventually go for, say, no, let me do that properly again, sorry. You go from Monday to Friday, it's 2,100. Instead of 500 per day. So 500 per day would have been $2,500. So you can see the discounts kicking in there. And then obviously you would go and pop in your attendees. Now, if you had changed the formula to be attendees, the price calculation multiplied by the attendees field, it would then multiply that price by the number of attendees. But it depends on, are you charging per person per day? Or are you saying, here's the total package cost? And then you go and pop in your name and any other fields you've allowed them to have, and then you hit book now. And then when they do that, it takes them over to the cart page. And you can see here, extreme weights, we've got loads of details coming in, add to Google, that will all be within the email, $2,100. This is just a fake page where I've just set up a direct bank transfer just to show you that the payment gateways, everything follows through. You hit place order, and then it will, obviously go through and you get your emails. There's a lot that you can do with the JetBooking. You just got to make sure you go through it methodically. And I know that sounds easier than it actually is, but you want to go through the settings. You then want to decide if it's going to be with WooCommerce or not. You then need to go and build out your form. And that is the part where I say really take your time on what you're pulling through. Now, when I had built this website previously with JetAppointment, it already had an existing form. If you had not installed JetAppointment and you were starting afresh with JetBooking, it would have a standard JetBooking form on there for you. I just regurgitated an old form and just messed around with the fields. But again, take your time and think about what you're going to have come through and always test it out. Do you get the right emails? Are the payments going through your gateway? Are you happy with the flow? I hope you've enjoyed this series of Crocoblock videos with JetEngine, JetSmartFilters, JetAppointment and JetBooking. Will I be doing some more in the future? You betcha I will be. But please do put down your comments and what you thought. Were there any gaps? Would you like me to tackle some other areas? There is no guarantee that I will, but I'd love to hear your comments. Hey, I'm Imran Web Squadron. I hope you like, subscribe, share and follow. I'll see you soon.
Never break, always fight, never quit, do it right, play the game, win it life, have no shame, there's no time, feel the pain, live the grind, I could change, in my mind, pick a lane.